The story begins with Gaijist, who is haunted by a nightmare of fire and blood. He wakes up terrified, and his wife Helena comes in, suggesting he take a break from work because he's overworking himself. Gaijist tells her not to worry, and that he's fine. On the other side, a TV reporter announces that smoke is still rising from the forest 2 days after the fire. The reporter says that investigators found Mont Blanc, a robot assigned to the Swiss Forestry Services, inside the fire, but only in scattered pieces. Mont Blanc was a famous mountaineering robot, well known for its friendships with many kids and climbers. It was dedicated to programming tree-cutting strategies that allowed humans and nature to coexist. The reporter then offers condolences to the public for losing Mont Blanc. At that moment, Gaijist turns off the TV and gets a call from his workplace. He tells Helena he's heading to work. He puts on his jacket and, before leaving, suggests to Helena they take a trip together when he gets the chance to take time off. Helena admits she didn't expect him to make that offer. Gaijist moves on to investigate a case. A police officer tells him the victim is Bernard Lanke, 42 years old, who lived in the apartment where he was found. Bernard was a leading activist for robot rights protection laws. Gaijist asks if the victim was human, and the officer confirms. As Gaijist continues his inspection, investigator Wallace warns that entering the crime scene without permission is prohibited. His assistant explains that Gaijist is an envoy from Europol. Gaijist shows his ID badge to Wallace, who apologizes, explaining that the place is a mess and they need some time to check for stolen items. Gaijist says it doesn't seem like a thief's work because there are no signs of looting and only one room was destroyed. Wallace then shows him the body and asks his opinion about the victim's death, noting that the victim had 2 prominent horns growing from his head. Meanwhile, the assistant receives a call informing Wallace that a checkpoint was breached. Wallace and Gaijist rush with police cars to the checkpoint. Wallace questions the officer who was attacked, asking if he was alone. The officer grimly replies that his partner, Roby, a robot police officer model BRC 1332, was also attacked. Gaijist approaches Roby lying a few steps away, and Wallace expresses disbelief that a robot officer could be destroyed so easily. Suddenly, a police officer tells Wallace that a suspect in their 20s, wearing a red hood and with tattoos covering his arms, fled to the redevelopment district in the old city. Wallace orders teams to pursue the suspect, but Gaijist doesn't wait and immediately chases after him. Gaijist reaches an old church, equips his hand with a firearm, and enters. There, he confronts the suspect, pointing the gun, warning him not to resist. The suspect backs away, wielding an iron rod. Gaijist says he found traces of robotic materials on the rod, indicating it came into contact with the robot officer. Before the suspect answers, Gaijist notices he is high on the drug, Noi, which he took about 40 minutes earlier. Gaijist asks the suspect about the drug dealer. The suspect names a man named Schultz, living on Karl Heinz Street. When asked when he met Schultz, the suspect replies it was before dawn. Gaijist tells him that if Schultz confirms this, it'll be a solid alibi since Bernard was killed around that time. Gaijist then asks, was Bernard killed? Gaijist accuses the suspect of attacking the police officer with the rod to avoid drug possession charges, and for destroying the robot officer Roby. He tells the suspect he can arrest him peacefully. The suspect lunges forward with the iron rod, but Gaijist dodges, kicks him, and points the gun. The suspect begs not to be shot, and Gaijist calms him, assuring his gun fires sleeping gas. Gaijist also reveals he is a robot designed, so he cannot harm humans. Next, Gaijist goes to Roby's house, introducing himself as a special investigator from Europol. Roby's robot wife answers the door. She comments that since Gaijist is a robot, he probably can mimic humans drinking tea, but an old-fashioned robot like her wouldn't really enjoy it. She pours tea for Gaijist, and explains she works as a maid for a family that has a human son. Before the boy was born, the family adopted a dog, so the boy and dog grew up like siblings. The dog died later. Gaijist asks if she would want to erase part of her memories, and the robot wife pleads not to erase memories of her husband. Gaijist returns to continue investigating Bernard's case and examining evidence. Wallace says there must be people targeting Bernard because he was an activist for robot rights. Another detective asks about the horns on the corpse. Gaijist pulls out a memory chip, inserts it into a device, and projects images onto a screen. The images show a place similar to where Mont Blanc was destroyed. Gaijist says breaking a strong robot like Mont Blanc is impossible for humans. At the crime time, no humans were found in Bernard's apartment. Wallace reminds him Bernard was human, and Gaijist acknowledges that Article 13 of the law forbids robots from harming or killing humans. Wallace says this would be the first case of a robot killing a human in 8 years. Gaijist vows to find whoever did it, no matter what. Finally, Gaijist visits the Alps and stands before a concrete base where a bronze statue of Mont Blanc was planned, but never built. Mont Blanc objected, saying the statue would ruin the view of the Alps. Someone tells Gaijist that Mont Blanc joined the 39th Central Asia War as a peacekeeper, helping the Persian kingdom restore peace amid chaos and destruction. Mont Blanc captured terrorists without bloodshed, and without him, peace would not have returned to Asia. He was also a poet who sang with the birds and talked to the trees. The man continued, saying that the workers in front of them volunteered to work for free because they loved Mont Blanc, the guardian angel of the mountains. Hundreds of thousands would attend his funeral over the next 3 days. Then the man said firmly that Mont Blanc's death was no accident, was completely destroyed. It was rumored that he died due to the great hurricane that hit just before the forest fire, but this wasn't true. The man asked Guiche to catch the person responsible. responsible. Afterwards, Gisht woke up inside a robot maintenance machine. Dr. Hoffman told him that the routine maintenance was done. Gisht thanked him, and Hoffman added that despite being a robot, one like him very similar to humans could still get exhausted. Gisht repeated, "Exhausted?" Hoffman explained that Gisht was likely dealing with tough problems. He mentioned seeing Mont Blanc's funeral on TV, where it was said Mont Blanc destroyed himself because of an electromagnetic wave that spread through his body. But as an expert, Hoffman didn't believe a strong robot like Mont Blanc could have such a problem. Gisht was silent, while Hoffman continued, saying he knew about Gisht's other complicated case. Hoffman had seen Bernard several times on TV. Targeting Bernard wasn't surprising since he was sharp-tongued and always looked down on everyone. He must have had enemies, unlike Mont Blanc. Hoffman sympathized, saying handling two tough cases would naturally exhaust Gisht. Gisht asked Hoffman if a normal person could sneak into a room without leaving any organic trace. Hoffman said he'd think about it until their next meeting because this place was supposed to be where Gisht felt comfortable, so they'd stop discussing those cases for now. Gisht said he'd offered his wife a trip and a break. Hoffman said traveling was good. Data showed it had positive effects on artificial intelligence. Hoffman suggested Gisht visit Japan, mentioning he went there invited by a scientist and found Tokyo interesting. Gisht said he'd talk to his wife. Hoffman asked about the dream Gisht was chasing, saying he wasn't trying to extract information but was surprised by AI-generated dreams. It was scientifically proven that AI had unconsciousness, but it was rare for robots to have real dreams. Hoffman asked Gisht to tell him more about his dream when ready. Hoffman then quoted the psychologist Freud, "Dreams are an expression of reality, not just a product of human imagination." When Gisht left the lab, he noticed a garbage worker pushing a cart with a robot cop on it. He stopped and asked if the robot was a cop. The worker said the forensic analysis for the robot was complete and they were disposing of it. Gisht asked if he could take a look. The worker agreed, saying the robot was just scrap. He even offered to sell the whole robot for 500 Zeus. A little later, Gisht returned to Ruby's wife and gave her husband's memory chip, thinking she'd want to keep it. She gratefully took it and asked him to load Ruby's memories into her. Gisht warned her that memories could be painful, but she insisted. He did it, telling her he'd extract it immediately if anything went wrong. Suddenly, the robot started malfunctioning. Gisht tried to stop her and remove the memory chip, but she said she saw something in Ruby's memories. The robot showed a clip of Ruby's partner stopping a suspect's car at a checkpoint. The suspect attacked Ruby and his partner with an iron rod. The robot noticed that Ruby was ready to use a taser as an immediate reaction, but something distracted him. The robot replayed the clip, and Gisht saw a flying object coming from behind the apartment building where Bernard was killed. He asked the robot to freeze the clip and zoom in. Gisht was surprised forensic evidence hadn't noticed the object. The robot said she wouldn't have either, if not for Ruby's memory chip. Ruby saw the object briefly, and his recognition system analyzed its identity. It wasn't a robot. After that, Gisht drove, analyzing the events of the two cases, Mont Blanc's and Bernard's. He went to a facility where an official asked if he was a robot. Gisht confirmed. The official gave him earbuds to protect against electromagnetic waves, warning that if he got too close to Brow, his system could be damaged because Brow emitted strong electromagnetic waves. Gisht assured him he was immune since he was made from a special alloy. The official warned him to be careful as 4 robots fell victim to Brow 1589. Gisht continued into the facility, bypassed a barrier, and saw Browth robot restrained by an extremely strict security system. Brow welcomed him, saying he was the most advanced robot investigator. Gisht said his ID system still seemed to work. Brow confirmed, saying his system had become more sensitive. Since he was immobilized, curiosity was killing him about what was happening outside. Gisht told Brow that a law professor named Bernard Lanky was killed, but there were no human traces at the crime scene. He asked if Brow thought the killer was human or robot, and why a robot would kill a human. Brow said they must have believed the AI criminal's system malfunctioned, but he hadn't seen any malfunction. Brow then suggested if Gisht wanted to know more about the killer, he could exchange memory chips with him and maybe learn something new. Gisht gave Brow printed photos of Mont Blanc's destruction and Bernard's murder. He asked about the meaning of some horns in the pictures. Brow explained that the death god in Europe had similar horns, and the hunter Hern, who takes warriors' souls, was also called the Horned King. In Greek mythology, the underworld king Hades was nicknamed Pluto. Brow returned the photos to Gisht, saying whoever the culprit was, they would strike again. Brow added that since Mont Blanc, the strongest robot, was easily destroyed, the best robots, made with the finest global technology, must be able to create weapons of mass destruction. In a distant palace, a blind musician named Duncan was visited by the new butler. The butler told Duncan that the security system was down. Duncan said no thief would come to such an empty place. He asked if the man was the new butler, who confirmed. Duncan asked his name and mocked it as useless. The butler said his name was North. Duncan joked that the agency said he had a military background. North said yes, he was chief butler for the UK Army's supreme commander during the 39th Central Asia War. Duncan noted he must look rough. North said he wore a cloak in front of others. Duncan understood that his whole body was basically a weapon. Duncan ordered him to make tea. North said he would, and that all Duncan's data was stored with him. North poured tea and said he watched the Queen movie via satellite and was impressed by the harmony of images and music. Duncan asked if it was stored in North's data as well. North said no, he was deeply moved. Duncan said the movie was over 10 years old, and that all the songs he composed were hugely successful, earning him many music awards and the nickname, the Blind Music Genius. However, he was later accused of losing his talent. Duncan said he could compose countless film scores if he wanted because his genius was alive, but he refused. North said he just heard Duncan working on a new piece. Duncan said it was just for himself. He sipped tea, then spilled it in front of North, saying the tea, like his name, had no taste. North said his piece was beautiful. Duncan scolded him, saying a military robot like him had no right to talk about art. Later, while having dinner, Duncan asked North how many people died in the Central Asia War. North said international robot laws prohibit harming humans. Duncan understood he must have killed his own kind and asked how many, but North didn't answer. Duncan told him to leave. North left, but grew curious about Duncan's piano playing. When North started trying the piano, Duncan angrily told him not to play. North asked why he had so many modern, advanced musical instruments but only used the piano. Duncan said they were just fake machines, just like him. Anything capable of seeing with it is fake, because the real scene is in his memory. North echoed in surprise. The real scene? Duncan said that the natural landscapes of his hometown are etched in his memory since he was aware, back when he was a child in Bohemia. Duncan started listing the natural views of his town, saying he would turn that scene into music. The next day, North tried playing the piano again. Duncan told him he had previously ordered him not to touch the piano. North apologized, but Duncan kept scolding him, insisting that all the film's notes would be fake if a machine like him played its music. North turned to him, apologizing for his intrusion, and told Duncan he heard him moaning in his sleep last night, but the moan sounded like humming and seemed fitting for the piece Duncan was working on. North tried to imitate Duncan's humming on the piano, but Duncan ordered him to leave the house. North confessed that he was trying to learn piano, even if it would seem fake, as Duncan said, but he wanted to get as close to real playing as possible. Duncan said a destructive machine like him could never play, and told North to stop touching his piano because it belonged only on the battlefield. North said he wanted to learn piano so he would never return to that battlefield again. The next day, Duncan woke up from his usual dream, chasing his mother in the wide fields, begging her not to leave. Then Duncan felt for his glasses, and asked North why he entered his room despite being told not to. North said breakfast was ready. Duncan sat eating, recalling that he had kicked North out, but he was surprised to hear North playing the piano. He rushed to the piano room angrily, asking how many times he had told him not to touch the piano. North pleaded to be heard, saying he had improved and would play the tune he hummed to prove it. But as North started playing, Duncan flew into a rage, knocking over his musical instruments, declaring that playing like that wasn't music at all. North warned he would destroy Duncan's instruments like that. Duncan asked how many machines like him he had destroyed, then pointed his cane at North, demanding he remove his cloak and show his weapon to the world. North stayed silent, while Duncan said he would teach him because of his real moan. Duncan said he had been seeing a nightmare for Yershi's real past. Not a nightmare. His real name was Paolo Holly. He was born in Bohemia, where his father died when he was young. Unfortunately, he had a chronic illness from birth that caused gradual blindness, so he turned to singing songs, his only source of happiness. His mother was a beautiful woman who caught men's attention whenever she passed by. One man approached and blinded her with money. Then his mother felt his illness was a burden, abandoned him, and sent him to a boarding school in England. There, he was bullied by students because of his weak body, but continued studying music determinedly. Eventually, he suffered a persistent fever, fainted in class, and was transferred between hospitals until doctors lost hope of recovery. Since then, he never heard from his mother again. When he was about to give up on life, a Japanese doctor appeared, though he had no medical license. The doctor said he could save Paolo's life, though he might end up totally blind. The surgery succeeded, but his sight worsened over time. Paolo kept studying music until he went completely blind. Years later, he was told his mother died alone. She never married the rich man, though she deserved it for abandoning him. He bought the rich man's mansion and made it his own. He changed his name from Paolo Holly to Duncan. He became the world's top music composer. He bought the mansion because his mother had wanted it badly, and gave him up for it. Now, he planned to turn the beautiful scene his mother left in their homeland into music. North tried to speak, but Duncan told him to be quiet and said he'd write him a recommendation letter to leave. Later, Duncan rolled around the mansion's garden in his electric chair and heard North playing. North's music stirred memories of war and destruction. When North stopped playing, Duncan said his playing had improved a bit. Later that night, while drinking water in the kitchen, Duncan noticed North charging himself and guessed he would leave tomorrow. The next day, Duncan continued composing but struggled. When he called for North, he wasn't there, he had left. Duncan then spoke to someone and asked when the new head servant would arrive. The person said it was Marshall from MCM Film Company. Duncan asked if there was a problem. Hearing it was about film, Duncan said he had fired the robotic head servant. Marshall was silent, then said he was contacting about music for a specific film. Duncan asked for details, and Marshall wanted his opinion on reusing one of Duncan's old compositions, which Duncan allowed. Later, Russell from the orchestra's planning center called Duncan to say they rejected the piece they had previously discussed for several reasons. Russell apologized to Duncan. Later, Duncan roamed the garden in his electric chair, recalling North's words about his new composition. He returned to the piano, remembering his past, chasing his mother as a child, trying to stop her from leaving. Suddenly, Duncan grabbed his cane and tried to break the piano. North stopped him, saying he had returned after going to his hometown in Bohemia. Duncan asked why he went there. North said he went to collect songs and found the tune he hummed in his sleep. When North tried to sing it, Duncan told him not to interfere with his nightmare, insisting humans have painful memories they want to erase. North said his memories deserved erasing. He was just a weapon that destroyed many machines in the Central Asia War, wiping out tens of thousands of his kind. That's why his artificial intelligence kept showing those scenes in his mind. North added he met an old woman in Bohemia familiar with folk songs, especially the one he hummed. The old woman said the singer was his mother. Duncan was silent as North continued, saying his mother never abandoned him during his illness. She had contacted a millionaire named Jonathan Thorne to secure his treatment, which might have helped cover the costly doctor who saved his life. She stayed by his side when he lost his sight, but left after realizing how much he hated her. North said the village elder told him how he always held his mother's hand while singing with her at sunset in their hometown fields. Then North sang. Duncan remembered his past and broke down crying. North told him it was just a song from a machine, but his dream was not a nightmare like Duncan's. Duncan ordered him not to return to the battlefield again and said he'd train North on the piano. Later, Duncan grew closer to North and continued teaching him piano. One day, North heard a sound and said something was approaching the mansion. Duncan asked if a friend was coming. North asked if Duncan had heard about news from Switzerland, mentioning a hurricane had struck about 100 kilometers from their base moments ago. North went out to the balcony, saying a threat was near. Seeing black smoke in the sky, North removed his cloaks to reveal his weapon-covered body and flew into the sky. Duncan followed him, calling out, asking what was happening. Soon, the clouds cleared after a fierce battle. Duncan heard the song spreading across the sky, then something exploded as it fell to the ground. Duncan wished for North to return home. Meanwhile, Gijis met a boy named Adam and told him he was happy to meet him. Events unfolded rapidly as Detective Tawash stood before a new victim, found hanging somewhere. His assistant informed him that the victim was Junichiro Tazaki, a law professor who had previously proposed the international laws for robots. Tawash asked if Tazaki was the one who granted robots equal rights as humans, and the assistant confirmed it. Tawash then ordered an investigation into those opposing robot rights. He also wondered how the victim's house was destroyed like that, and the forensic team said they were analyzing it. Tawash confidently said it would be easy for them. Tawash complained that the way the victim was killed reminded him of a case he once read about, where the victim also had horns. The assistant mentioned two similar cases, one involving the robot Mont Blanc in Switzerland, and the other about law professor Bernard in Germany. Tawash said he needed to contact the investigators handling those cases. The assistant told him that both cases were handled by Detective Jigishi, who was also a robot. Meanwhile, Jigishi was sitting with Adam in a cafe, admitting after some thought that when he tries to activate his recognition system to determine if Adam is human or not, his system malfunctions. He told Adam he had seen him several times in magazines after he was discovered during the Central Asia War, as the media caused a big stir then. But sitting face to face was different. A waitress brought desserts to Adam, who happily said it was mealtime. Jigishi said he was sure Adam wasn't just mimicking humans drinking tea, since he really seemed to enjoy eating. Adam replied that the more he mimicked, the more he enjoyed it. Jigishi asked if that's why Adam collected snails in the rain when they first met, and if that gave him a feeling of being alive. He added that he was sure Adam's AI system was more advanced than his, even though Adam was still young. Adam said despite that, he had been sold to the circus. Jigishi was a bit surprised, and explained he had asked to meet Adam because Adam was in danger after the murders of Mont Blanc in Switzerland and North in Scotland. As one of the world's 7 most advanced robots, Adam's safety mattered. Adam was shocked. Jigishi said he didn't have proof the same person killed them, but believed the killer's goal was to destroy the 7 most advanced robots. When Adam asked why, Jigishi guessed he knew the reason. Adam asked permission to read Jigishi's memory chip, hoping to find evidence from what he had seen or heard. Jigishi initially refused because his memory contained sensitive info about other cases and his personal life. Then Jigishi remembered Adam's AI was more advanced and trusted him, handing over the chip. Adam inserted it and quickly returned it, telling Jigishi to delete unrelated info while hoping he'd provide any missed details. Adam got up, saying he needed to use the restroom, explaining he developed the habit from mimicking human behavior. Jigishi understood and let him go. As soon as Adam entered the restroom, he began to cry. Later, Jigishi and Adam walked together in the rain. Adam asked if Jigishi planned to leave Japan immediately. Jigishi confirmed he had much work ahead and planned to talk to 3 other robots about the case. Adam invited him to visit again, which Jigishi promised. Adam surprised him by saying his wife was beautiful. Jigishi stopped abruptly, admitting that's why he had hesitated to let Adam read his memory. Adam laughed, and Jigishi shouted for him not to mock adults and to delete that data immediately. Adam kept laughing, assuring Jigishi that he and his wife would be fine, no matter what. Jigishi thanked him and said goodbye, promising to meet again. At the forensic department at the Capitol Police Headquarters, Tawash asked his assistant about the cause of death. The assistant said asphyxiation. Tawash asked if the murder weapon was a rope, and the assistant said they didn't know yet, only that the victim's neck had been heavily pressured and no other evidence was found. Tawash ordered a 3D reconstruction of the crime scene. Later, Tawash and his assistant Nakamura went to the crime scene, where Adam surprised them by being there. Tawash asked who allowed him to enter, and Adam showed his access permit, reminding him that that Europol had been asked for help in the investigation. Adam explained he had Gigishi's memory relating to the Mont Blanc and North cases. Tawash understood that Adam's robot nature helped him exchange memory data with Gigishi, but he warned Adam he'd be wrong to think he knew everything, since robots couldn't grasp beauty or enjoy food. Tawash looked away for a moment and said maybe only a robot could understand this case better, since the killer was a robot like them. Adam asked what made him say that. Tawash explained that humans couldn't commit a crime without leaving a trace, such as fingerprints, hair, or some other evidence. Adam pointed out green tea in the debris, finding 2 broken teacups and yolk and bean jelly cakes. Tawash ordered Nakamura's AI system to display that evidence. Adam confirmed the tea had been made recently, and Nakamura said the autopsy reported tea and yoken in the victim's stomach. Adam then asked Tawash if he ever served tea and yoken to a visiting robot. Tawash said robots often just pretended to eat all the time. Adam moved to another spot at the crime scene, saying the victim and killer had admired kapia flowers in the garden. Nakamura displayed the flowers. Adam asked Tawash if he still thought the killer was a robot. Tawash asked irritably about the house destruction, wondering if the killer had bulldozed the home after happily admiring the flowers. Tawash then ordered videos of witness statements to be shown. One witness said it felt like a tornado, another heard a huge bang and suddenly the neighboring house disappeared, and a man said he couldn't believe his house still stood after such a massive storm. Tawash pointed at the videos and told Adam that witnesses insisted it was an unusually focused tornado that destroyed only one house. He asked Adam's opinion, but Adam continued investigating, saying Mr. Junichiro had gone to the garden. Tawash asked to see the body again, but Nakamura refused, saying the boy wasn't allowed to see the body. Tawash reminded him Adam was still a robot, so he ordered the body displayed. As soon as Adam saw the body and its horns, memories of Jijishi and Brow's voice echoed in him, saying the god of death had horns, as did the lord of the underworld in Greek mythology. Adam said in surprise, Pluto. Adam wondered if the victim had used ink pens. Nakamura said they found ink on the victim's middle finger, so it seemed he did. Adam said the rain had washed most of the ink away, but he could still detect traces on the hand. Suddenly, Adam noticed wet footprints of the victim, saying the victim ran from the garden to the house, then to the office. Adam found the same ink bottle as the one on Junichiro's hand. Tawash ordered the bottle shown, and Adam guessed the victim had dropped it while searching for something. Adam kept examining until he found investigation committee business cards. Nakamura asked whose cards they were. Later, Adam went to a facility where Professor Ochanomizu was arguing with someone, saying that the Thracians could say whatever they wanted, but they wouldn't make robots for Thracians to use in wars. Adam interrupted, asking if he had a moment. Ochanomizu was surprised and asked why Adam had come at this time. Adam asked if Ochanomizu had heard of law professor Junichiro Tazaki, who proposed the international robot laws. He realized he had been in an accident and died. Adam then asked him about the main activist, Bernard Lanky. Ochanomizu said he hadn't seen Bernard in years. Adam told him Bernard was dead too and asked where he had met him before. The professor explained that Bernard was part of a special investigation committee during the Central Asia War, and that's where they met. Adam added that Junichiro Tazaki was looking for a business card just before he died, the professor's card. Okonomizu was surprised and wondered if Junichiro had tried to contact him. Adam confirmed that he was in danger and that someone might be trying to kill him and former members of the Bora investigation committee. Okonomizu stayed silent, but Adam begged him to tell him about Bora. Okonomizu explained that the dictator Darius XIV ruled the Persian kingdom, where both citizens and robots were treated badly, violating UN treaties. Darius used massive military robotic forces to control neighboring countries and invade all of Central Asia. This led to a proposed treaty banning the manufacturing of weapons robots, which the UN approved. But later, the Persian kingdom was suspected of having weapons robots. So Alexander, the president of the United States of Thracia, accused Persia. Based on these accusations, the Bora investigation committee was sent to Persia. No one knew if Bora was just a codename or meant something else, but Ochanomizu confirmed he was part of the committee alongside Bernard and Junichiro. They found no evidence of the supposed weapons robots Thracia claimed existed. Adam asked on what grounds Thracia made these claims. Okonomizu said there was a widespread belief that an advanced robotic army was created by a genius scientist known as Dr. Goji, but no one had proof or even seen him. Lowering his head, Okonomizu said this was all they could find out. However, he recalled inspecting a deep spot under an old mosque where he saw piles of broken robot bodies. Persia said it was a dump for malfunctioning robots. Then the war started, Darius's palace fell, and peace returned to Central Asia thanks to Mont Blanc. At the wrestling arena, Brando was competing in the SKKR Championship. The final round ended with Brando's victory, marking his 936th consecutive undefeated match, earning him the title of the strongest warrior in history. Later, Gaijist met Brando and congratulated him, saying it was an amazing match. Brando shared that sometimes he felt paralyzed after a match. Gaijist looked up at Brando's wrestling suit and said all wrestlers wear the same gear, but when Brando wears it, he becomes the strongest. Brando replied that experience was all a wrestler needs to win, and the rest depends on luck. Gaijist questioned, luck? Brando laughed and said humans find it funny when robots talk about luck, but he considered himself lucky. Gaijist walked with Brando, a bit surprised by the old city surroundings. Brando explained it was an old city and pointed to his home upstairs. Brando told Gaijist that he was probably wondering why a fighting star like him lived in such a rundown place. He could afford a luxury home with his fight fight earnings but chose to invest elsewhere. Brando opened his apartment door, announcing his return as the king of the fighting world, and kids ran to hug him, calling him their father. His wife, Minnie, greeted him warmly. Brando introduced Gaijish to Minnie, who then prepared dinner. Gaijish sat down to eat with Brando. One of the kids asked Gaijish seriously if he was really a detective. Gaijish confirmed, and the kid asked about his cool weapon. Gaijish said he had no special weapon. Minnie yelled at the kid to stop asking silly questions or she'd punish him, so the kid ran off. Minnie apologized to Gaijish, who said he hadn't enjoyed a meal like this in a long time. Brando said eating a human meal wasn't a bad idea. Gaijish said it was a meal full of joy. Brando said his home was always like a festival every day. Minnie shouted at Brando to eat his salad. The kids declared their mom the strongest in the house because she was a world champion. Later, the kids went to bed, and Brando chatted with Gaijish while Minnie served drinks, warning Brando not to drink too much. Brando told Gaijish he built this life with the money he earned fighting, explaining that Minnie never knew when he'd come home, so she was always alone and worried. Then he started adopting robot kids and felt happier with each new child, now having 5. Brando said he never cared about injuries in the past, but after adopting the kids, he wanted to live as long as possible. He no longer wanted to die and believed Mont Blanc wanted to live, too. Brando recalled meeting Mont Blanc during the Central Asia War and spending happy times together, even talking through the night. Mont Blanc told him about trees and birds, so Brando couldn't believe such a great man died the way he did. Then Gaijish asked if Brando knew a robot named North. Brando said he only knew the name. Gaijish told him North died last week, even though he had lived peacefully as a butler for a composer in Scotland. Brando asked if he was killed. Gaijish confirmed and said he was also in danger. Brando reassured him not to worry because he was the king of the fighting world. Gaijish said that's why he was targeted. Brando said he was waiting for them to avenge Mont Blanc's death. Gaijish told Brando not to be reckless and to contact him if anything happened. Later, Brando and Gaijish strolled together. Gaijish said he had a great day with him and invited him to visit again. He also said the kids were amazing and that Brando should consider adopting. Suddenly, Gaijish remembered the garbage man's words about buying an entire robot body for money, which made him hurt inside. Brando noticed and asked what was wrong. Gaijish said he drank too much. Brando asked if he could get home, and Gaijish said he was fine. Brando told him to call if anything happened since he was lucky to have a family. They said goodbye, and Gaijish walked away hoping Brando wouldn't die and leave him alone. At the wrestling arena, a match was underway where Hercules dominated his opponent and nearly tore off his arm with a deadly hold. The fight ended with the crowd cheering for Hercules' victory. It was announced that Hercules would face European champion Brando next month. Later, Gaijish met Hercules near his memorial. Gaijish said it was an impressive monument. Hercules said he didn't want it because he thought it would ruin a historic site, but he ended up with a statue in his wrestling suit anyway. Gaijish said he watched his last match and he was strong as always. He invited Hercules to sit and have tea, but Hercules declined, saying he didn't imitate humans because he was a destruction robot that only smashed opponents. Gaijish disagreed, saying that in Hercules' last match, before Gaijish finished speaking, Hercules asked if he thought Hercules had grown weak and hesitated to crush his opponent. Hercules then asked if he was worried about the upcoming match against Brando since he'd come to see him. Gaijish said he did visit Brando, who was at his strongest. Hercules said he fought Brando many times and knew he was as strong as ever. Hercules asked if Gaijish knew why humans built monuments. He said humans forget, so they build monuments before memories fade, while robots' memories last unless erased. He explained that their comrades in arms were piles of robot corpses on both sides. Since learning this feeling, he couldn't destroy his enemies anymore. Hercules asked Gaijish what humans called that feeling. Gaijish said they called it mercy. Meanwhile, Brando stood in his yard, remembering Mont Blanc and how people gathered around and loved him. Suddenly, his kids interrupted, asking if he hadn't promised to take them to the zoo. Brando apologized, saying some work came up that he needed to handle. He promised them he would join them next time, stressing that a man's word is his bond and men never break their promises. But Minnie stepped in, asking the kids to stop complaining because she would be going with them. Then she asked Brando about his sudden job. Brando told her he had an interview with Miss Istanbul because he owed a favor to an editor he knew and couldn't refuse. Minnie wished him luck and left. Later, Brando borrowed the cargo truck from the fighting arena and took out his fighting suit without permission. He drove around with the truck when someone called, warning him he would be banned from fighting if anything happened to the truck or his suit. Brando said he borrowed the truck to prepare for the upcoming match against Hercules. Meanwhile, Adam was with Ochanomizu in his car, wondering if the cause of recent incidents was a robot. Ochanomizu told him the only case where a robot killed a human was Brow 1589. Adam asked what flaws Brow 1589 had. Ochanomizu explained that Brow was a perfect AI with no defects. Adam was surprised how could a perfect AI kill a human. He even questioned if Brow could have been human. Soon, Brando stopped his truck on the Black Sea coast, feeling it was the right place to do what he planned. He pulled out his fighting suit and stepped outside, looking at the sea. The sea began to churn wildly, like a coming storm. Brando contacted Gigishtu, who was with Hercules at that time. Gigishtu asked Hercules and Adam to receive the signal immediately. The three immediately understood Brando was declaring war to take revenge on Mont Blanc's killer. Gigishtu and Hercules rushed to rescue Brando after pinpointing his location, but the signal was heavily distorted. On the other side, Adam told Okanamizu someone was attacking Brando, so they had to hurry to save him. Suddenly, all three received a simultaneous warning that the attacker was very powerful. Then a chaotic noise happened, as if they were plunging into a dark path. They wondered what was going on and called out to Brando, but he didn't respond at first. Then the sea calmed down and returned to normal. Brando's voice came through, saying he defeated the thing but took a hit too. Hercules told him to hang on, but Brando said he was looking forward to their next match. Hercules told him they were coming to rescue him, but Brando said he would send them his analysis of the creature he just fought. When Brando tried to stream images of the creature, the feed was too scrambled to show anything but Minnie and her kids. Brando apologized to his friends, saying he couldn't control it. Then he asked Gigishtu to tell his children he was a lucky man and not to worry about him. After that, the connection between Brando and his friends was lost. While flying over the sea, Gigishtu noticed oil floating on the water and a huge amount of debris on the seabed. Adam then called to ask if they noticed anything strange, mixed in with Brando's signal. Gigishtu asked if the signal was from someone other than Brando. Adam said it was from an uncontrolled AI that sounded like noise, but what exactly it was remained a mystery. Okanamizu asked to display the feed on the screen, and the three clearly saw it. Adam guessed it was what humans call embodied death. Later, the TV announced that many people gathered at the Blue Mosque's amphitheater in Istanbul to mourn their hero Brando. The reporter said at the scene that the seabed was completely covered in debris, and the police and military were continuing to search for Brando's remains. On the other side, Hercules stood by the sea, distracted and refusing to continue fighting. His boss threatened to sue him for breach of contract if he refused to compete. Hercules turned to the man and said hopelessly that the search team hadn't found a trace of the killer. All they found were crushed parts belonging to Brando. Hercules wondered why there were no signs of the killer since Brando had faced and defeated him. The man asked why Hercules bothered searching debris and spending his own money when the police and army had given up. He also said Brando's fans were eagerly waiting for his return to the ring. Then the search team reported they found Brando's arms on a rock near the reef, 100 kilometers away, not at the seabed. Hercules quickly took his vehicle and headed to the rock with the search team. He examined the area himself and found a memory chip belonging to Brando. There, he discovered the killer was not dead yet when he saw Brando's arms placed like horns. Somewhere, Inspector Nakamura was wondering about the extent of the damage from an incident. A police officer told him that the event was not just a local tornado because it only damaged a single truck, a livestock transport truck carrying 5 animals, a lion, 2 tigers, and a hunting leopard. Suddenly, another officer approached Nakamura and said there was a child surrounded by those animals. Nakamura and the officer rushed to check it out. Nakamura asked if there was any way to save the child. The officer confirmed that the rescue team was ready. Another officer said they had to deal with all 5 animals at once. Nakamura ordered more snipers immediately. At that moment, a little girl crossed the police line and approached the child trapped by the animals. Nakamura was shocked and asked what she was doing. The girl calmly spoke to the animals, soothing them and asking them not to be afraid. The animals gathered around her. At that instant, the officers aimed their weapons at the animals and ran to the child. The girl turned to Nakamura, saying that the weapons scared the animals. Nakamura was amazed, repeating her name, Oren. Later, at Nakamura's office, he asked Oren if the lion had really felt fear, and she said yes. Because she sensed his fear, she walked 3 kilometers outside her school to reassure him. Someone asked if she could really feel the animal's fear despite the distance. Oren said absolutely. The man smiled and told Nakamura that Oren had an amazing gift. Oren asked if she could leave. As she was leaving with Nakamura, Otomu crossed her path and apologized for the trouble caused by his sister, Oran. Nakamura said she actually helped them. Oran explained that she calmed the big cats and that the child was saved because of her. Nakamura told her she deserved the public service award, but Oran said she didn't want a boring prize. Instead, she said the lion should be her prize. Otomu apologized to the inspector for Oran's behavior. At the police station exit, Officer Otomu and Oran headed toward the human's gate, but Otomu said they needed to pass through the non-human's gate. The officer said that distinguishing between humans and robots had become difficult. While Otomu was passing through the scanning gate, he felt something odd when he saw someone's face. On the other side, Tawash greeted that same person who had just passed near Otomu, saying he was from the Tokyo Police Department. Tawash then asked Nakamura to bring a translator to communicate, but the man said he spoke Japanese. Tawash shook his hand, saying he had expected that from the greatest genius in Central Asia. Tawash called the man Professor Abdullah. When Abdullah sat, Tawash asked if his visit was part of post-war reconstruction efforts. Abdullah confirmed, saying he came for the World Scientific Conference in Tokyo. Tawash noted that he had visited Japan 3 months ago and met Professor Junichiro Tazaki. Abdullah didn't deny it and said he had read the shocking news of Tazaki's death. Why would a great man like him be killed? Tawash said he was the last person Tazaki saw before before his death. Abdullah fell silent. Tawash reassured him he was not a suspect since the incident happened as Abdullah's plane was about to take off, but he asked if Abdullah noticed anything unusual during his visit to Tazaki. Abdullah replied that since Tazaki was the first to propose international robot laws, he had told Abdullah his true wish, for humans and robots to live together. Meanwhile, Oren told Atomu that robots' emotions are much deeper than humans think, but they just don't express themselves well. She added that it said humans and robots can't be told apart without a scanning gate, but she can recognize the difference immediately because human faces show complex expressions. When Oren turned to Atomu to mimic human facial expressions, he said he couldn't tell the gender of the man who passed near them at the gate, was he human or robot. Meanwhile, Tawash and Nakamura were saying goodbye to Abdullah at the scanning gate. Tawash thanked him for his help. When Abdullah passed through the gate, it lit up red and an alarm sounded. Nakamura yelled at the officer to turn the alarm off. Abdullah then apologized to Tawash and Nakamura, saying he lost most of his organic body parts during the last war. He mentioned he had heard about the tornado that hit Tokyo today and wondered where exactly it occurred. Somewhere, Oren suddenly felt scared. Atomu told her the big cats were safe now. Oren said she had that feeling for just a moment. Atomu asked if she still felt it. Oren said it was very faint and she couldn't locate it. Looking up at the sky, Oren said lions hide their fear when deeply frightened. Then she turned to Atomu and said she knew he was now more scared than the lions. At Gage's home, he was gazing at a photo of Brando with his family. Helena came up to comfort him, assuring him he wasn't to blame for what happened. Gage looked at her and asked if they could take a trip. Helena was surprised and asked if he could get time off. He said management considered the robot attacks over. Helena said a change would be good then. Guy just asked her opinion about traveling to Japan, saying he had visited on a business trip and found it a wonderful place. Helena agreed. Guy just contacted Marco Polo travel agency to book a trip for him and his wife. When he tried to register his wife, the agent said she was already registered with their company. Guy just was puzzled since Helena hadn't left the EU previously. The agent said they had a reservation canceled by them 2 years ago for a trip to Japan. Guy just remembered they were in Spain then for training with Europol. Helena confirmed they lived in Madrid for a year. Later, Guy just looked through photos he took with Helena at the time. Helena said she had stumbled in sunflower fields and disappeared, so he used GPS to find her. Guy just laughed, saying they took many photos. Helena joked they might have gone overboard trying to copy human behavior. Guy just said it was fun. Later, Guy just went to Professor Hoffman's lab for maintenance. Hoffman told him the maintenance was done and there was nothing abnormal. Data showed everything was fine, but he thought Gagist was overworking himself. Hoffman advised him not to be so hard on himself because of the Brando incident. He explained that human memory is suited for humans because it helps them forget. Life is harsh when holding on to painful memories. Unfortunately, robots always have vivid memories, and the only solution is to erase them. Guy just asked if there was a record of deleting his memories. Hoffman paused, saying he didn't know. Guy just asked about the effects of implanting fake memories into his mind. Hoffman said he had heard it was common in reform facilities, but now robots have rights. Guy just wondered if someone erased his memories and replaced them with fake ones, causing his depression. Hoffman adjusted his glasses and said it was an interesting theory. Later, Hoffman ran after director Schilling. Schilling said he was heading to a meeting and they could talk later. Hoffman insisted on just a minute and asked if Schilling had done something with Gaijist's memory. Schilling stopped suddenly and asked how many robots in the world were at Gaijist's level with the ability to switch to a destruction system. Hoffman said 7 existed. Schilling said 3 had been destroyed in mysterious incidents: Mont Blanc, North, and Brando. Now only 4 remained, including Gaijist. Schilling said they had invested heavily in Gaijist and all they had to do was maintain him well. Hoffman shouted asking what Schilling had done to Gaijist and what he was hiding, but Schilling walked away without answering. Elsewhere, a new murder happened. Gaijist went to investigate. Detective Verson guessed the killer was the same one who did the earlier cases. Gaijist said it was a copycat because the killer wore hybrid sneakers to erase footprints but left traces of movements everywhere. Gaijist identified the killer's height and weight using his recognition system. Then he pointed to a drawer, saying the killer couldn't handle the handle without removing his gloves. The detective thanked him for the help and apologized for calling him during his vacation. Gaijist asked if this was their second meeting. The detective said he met Gaijist 3 years ago in Salzburg. He explained that back then, Gaijist told him many stories about the Central Asia War. Gaijist said he drank 7 bottles of Ja'a at Carl's bar that night. The investigator laughed and said he'd like to drink with him again. Then Gaijist got in his car, saying he clearly remembered what happened 3 years ago, and that 4 years had passed since the Central Asia War. That's how democracy took root in Persia. His mind went back to the Central Asia War, where fire and widespread destruction covered the area. At that time, the military police searched for hidden terrorists and asked residents to evacuate one district. When Gaijist entered a place, a man blamed him, saying only children had been there, and they threw a bomb on his sleeping child. The man grabbed Gaijist by the collar and asked where the justice was, saying Gaijist should feel the same pain he did now. Gaijist replied that he was a robot. Back in reality, Gaijist said his memory was perfect about what happened 4 years ago. Somewhere, there was a boy named Hans playing on his device, but his mother accidentally spilled a drink on it. Hans asked why they didn't get a robot made, saying all his classmates had one. Hans's father shouted that his mother was doing her best and told him to pay attention and not play while eating. Then the wife asked her husband about his plans for the day, reminding him it was the anniversary of his brother's death. Adolf said it had been 3 years since his brother brother died. His wife couldn't believe he had been denied receiving the body for the full 3 years. Adolf said the laws were like that authorities hold criminals' bodies for 3 years. He added that his brother was a good man, so he wanted a proper burial. Later, Adolf was driving when he heard news about an explosion in Berlin yesterday, in which Judge Neumann from the German Justice Ministry died. Judge Neumann was the world's first robot judge, known for groundbreaking rulings like in the Greifeld case. The cause of the explosion was still unknown. Adolf called someone and told him about the judge's death. The man replied, "Death to machines." Adolf went to receive his brother's body. The official told him that under Koenig law, 3 years had passed since they kept the body, so it was time to return it to the family. The official asked Adolf to sign, and Adolf asked to see the body, but the official warned against it, saying the injuries were too much to bear. Adolf said he was told his brother was shot by a police officer. Adolf went to the Hofgarten cemetery but changed course before arriving. He headed to Dr. Schiller's office. Schiller asked if he had any complaints about the autopsy report. Adolf said he came to look at his brother's body with him. When Schiller opened the coffin and looked inside with Adolf, they were both shocked. Later, Adolf ate with his wife, who told him robots had become more common, especially in places like restaurants. She mentioned that robots were said to think like humans. Adolf told her not to say such things out loud because that counted as bias under the robot protection law. Adolf then stood up, said he had something to take care of before going home, and told her to head home. Meanwhile, Geigist received a report about an armed robbery. He was told the robbers were fleeing in a military vehicle. Geigist said he would try to cut them off. At the same time, Adolf's car passed by Geigist's. Geigist quickly reached the suspect's location and requested permission to open fire. Once approved, he damaged the tires of the suspect's vehicle. The police then surrounded the vehicle and ordered the suspects to raise their hands and surrender. One of the suspects admired Geigist and asked if his gun was an anti-tank weapon. Geigist said he had to use special ammo to stop the armored vehicle. The man asked about the ammo, and Geigist said it was zirconium shells. Elsewhere, a disguised man met with some people, telling them he wished to eradicate all robots from the planet. He promised to repeal international robot protection laws and get rid of robot police. The man shouted the slogan, "Death to machines." After his speech, the man went to his office, where Adolf was waiting. Adolf told him he received his brother's body today. Though his brother deserved to die, his body was completely crushed by a weapon that should never be used against humans. He said only robots could fire that weapon, which shocked the man. Adolf added that under Article 13 of international robot laws, robots can't harm or kill humans. Still, a few robots in the world could fire zirconium shells like the ones found in his brother's body. The man said he knew the robot Adolf meant the investigator Geigist. Europol had invested heavily in him. Geigist had solved many tough cases and served as a peacekeeper during the Central Asia War. Adolf angrily said his brother was scum, but didn't deserve to be crushed by a robot. He asked the man to lend him his power to destroy Geigist. In another place, someone helped Hercules by handing him a combat suit. Hercules thanked him and asked if the suit had been maintained. The man confirmed and warned that Hercules could lose his fighting license if caught using the suit without permission. Hercules said he planned to retire. He put on the suit and immediately started testing it, saying, "The right arm feels a bit weak." Meanwhile, news spread that a robot police officer fired zirconium shells a few days ago. Mr. Wagner, Europol's information officer, was interviewed about it. Wagner said the shell was fired at an armored vehicle. The reporter said if it had hit a human, it would have crushed them. Wagner explained that any use of that shell required presidential approval and that they prioritized protecting human lives. The reporter asked how many robots could fire zirconium shells. Wagner turned off the TV and asked Adolf what he thought about the program. Adolf said it would take time to respond. The man said they could always add a stigma to Geigist eventually. Adolf said Geigist was going on a long work vacation, so they needed to act fast. The man replied they wouldn't stop smearing him no matter where he ran. He told Adolf to be patient so their plan wouldn't be exposed, preventing society from turning against them for being anti-robot. Elsewhere, Hercules fell to the ground. His companion ran toward him, making Hercules wonder if what he had just tested was photon energy. Then Epsilon appeared to Hercules. Hercules told him his greeting was harsh, and Epsilon apologized, saying he had to stop him from fighting. Hercules asked if Epsilon had become a peace advocate and thus hadn't joined the war. Epsilon replied the war wasn't a fair one. Hercules accused him of just being scared and making excuses. Epsilon admitted he was scared. Hercules said he heard Epsilon was forced to do post-war cleanups. Epsilon said he was mistreated and bullied by the whole world, but still gained something valuable. He met many kids and adopted them. Hercules said he heard about a robot adopting and raising children and asked, could it be that the valuable thing you gained was love? Epsilon said humans and robots are getting closer, and if they get closer still, something bad will happen. Meanwhile, Adolf went to buy a weapon. The seller told him about a rare weapon made during the Central Asia War, now impossible to produce or sell. It was a compact cluster cannon, a guided rocket launcher that never misses and can tear robots apart. The seller warned Adolf to be careful because owning it could be enough to charge a civilian with attempted murder. Adolf took the weapon and left, remembering how robots drastically improved production but caused humans to lose jobs, just like his father. As a child, Adolf followed his father, telling him he was hungry. When his father brought food, Adolf didn't just eat one sandwich, so his brother scolded him, reminding him their father was looking for work. At the same time, Adolf saw some kids playing ball and wished for a ball too. His father immediately got him one, but soon a robot caught Adolf's father, claiming he stole the ball from the store. Days later, Adolf's father returned home but kept drinking heavily and then committed suicide by jumping from a rooftop 3 months later. Adolf's brother took care of him until one day he told Adolf he had enrolled him in middle school as planned but had injured his arm. He reassured Adolf that he was attacked by a robot but got rid of it and asked Adolf to study hard to create a world without robots. At the moment, Adolf was chasing Gigesht, determined to kill him. When he reached him, Adolf aimed his weapon but suddenly saw a massive energy burst and immediately stepped back. At the same time, Epsilon appeared to Gigesht and apologized for summoning him without warning, assuring him that he was the only one with the authority to arrest their enemy. Gigesht said the enemy died fighting Brando, according to the official Europol statement, but Epsilon refused to believe this. He said they must stop Hercules' upcoming duel, warning that if they don't, a second war will break out. Epsilon then asked if Gigesht had heard of Persian War Syndrome, which Gigesht described as deep psychological damage from war experiences. Epsilon added that the boys he adopted also show strong symptoms, especially one child whose entire village vanished instantly, leaving him the sole survivor. The child's memory bore an enormous figure he saw in the desert called Bora. At Adam's place, he asked Oran to hurry to school, but Oran asked if he felt a little animal trembling because he couldn't go back home. Adam asked if that feeling still bothered her. Oran then asked for an excuse for school since she needed to go find the animal. Oran searched for the animal and reached a restricted area where she noticed a robot lying on the ground. She realized that must be the one crying and told him to hold on until she could inform Mr. Uchanamizo, but he asked her to leave him be. She asked about the energy he used and he said soul. She said she hadn't heard of it before. He said the alternative to his energy was R. She promised to bring him some and ran out immediately. Later, the robot thanked Oran for saving him. When she asked his name, he said he only remembered running from something terrifying but didn't know what it was. He pointed to a cabin, and Oran guessed it was a work cabin for a development project. The man confessed he had stolen clothes from the cabin, and Oran told him they didn't fit. She introduced herself and asked if he'd painted the art on the wall. He said he got the paint from the cabin but didn't know if he was an artist. Oran explained the painting was abstract art and that robots rarely paint such images because they usually only paint what they see. The robot said he didn't even know why he painted. The next day, Oran brought the robot more energy batteries and paint, later giving him bigger clothes. She was surprised when he finished his painting quickly. It was a field of flowers. Oran stared at it in awe and said his rough drawing wasn't bad. The following day, Adam stopped Oran from sneaking out and she told him she found a very cute cat. Adam asked if it drank energy boosters and accused her of searching her bag without permission. Oran said it was a robotic cat. Adam told her to report it to the Ministry of Science and asked for the model number. She said she didn't know because the cat was still shy and had just approached her. Oran promised to introduce the cat to Adam when it was ready. Oran went back to the robot and was surprised to see he had dirtied the clothes she'd brought him. She approached him to scold him, but he said he'd discovered his true purpose and made a flower appear out of nowhere, telling her he found his real power. Oran guessed that was why he painted the field of flowers. Later, she learned from the robot that his computer was broken. She said that Uchana Mizo told her even if they fixed the robot's computer, he would become a completely different robot. The robot asked if that meant death. Then he panicked, seeing the desert in his memory, muttering about a giant monster named Bora. Oran calmed him, assuring him he was safe. Elsewhere, someone contacted Abdullah, saying he'd arrived at Central Park. Abdullah asked if he passed customs without issues. The man confirmed and said he arrived at the site damaged by the last hurricane. Then the man opened his mouth and vomited many flying insects. Abdullah told him he'd later give him the model number to recover and assured him the body he lent was precisely engineered. He added that he had to find model Pluto. On the other side, Oran tried to remind the robot of his past life. The robot left the area and caused a huge whirlwind that made flowers bloom. At that moment, Uchinamizo and Adam suddenly arrived and told Oran to stay away from the robot immediately. Adam explained the robot was surrounded by a strange electromagnetic field, adding that he had already informed the Ministry of Science. Then the police and investigator Nakamura appeared. Oran scolded Adam for that. Hearing Adam's name, the robot moved toward him, muttering hatred. Police tried to shoot the robot, but Adam stopped them. Suddenly, a strange energy appeared. Horns grew on the robot's head, and it collapsed. Uchanamizo examined him and was shocked to find the robot's computer missing. Some structural parts also fell. Meanwhile, a strange machine appeared, and someone said he worked at the development site. After finishing a 100-hour shift, when he was ready to go home, he found his body outside work was missing. Uchanamizo asked if the body lying there was his. The man said he was glad to have found it. On the other side, Abdullah met his robot. He explained that having a robot without its computer meant it could be controlled remotely via electromagnetic waves. He ordered Pluto to return to its body and reminded him not to forget his true mission, to kill Adam. The next day, Professor Ochanamizu was enjoying his day off in the park, but his robotic bodyguard, Yojiru, was sticking to him like a shadow. So, the professor asked him to take a short break because he couldn't really enjoy his day that way. Yojiru tried to explain that it was for his protection, but the professor said no one would try to target him on a peaceful Sunday. Besides, some incidents tied to the Bura interrogation didn't warrant so much worry. While they were talking, the sound of a small puppy interrupted them. Okanamizu went toward the noise and was surprised to find a tiny robotic dog. He wondered who could have abandoned it. Yojiru warned him not to touch the dog, suspecting it might be carrying explosives. After examining it, Yojiru found it safe. Ochanamizu picked it up, deciding to take it home. Later, Yojiru drove the professor back to his house. When asked what he planned to do with the dog, Okanamizu said he would repair it since he was the Minister of Science. He started fixing the dog, saying the damage to its motor was severe, but the bigger problem was with its electronic brain circuits. Meanwhile, someone from the Ministry of Defense called, apologizing for disturbing Okanamizu on his day off. The caller talked about a committee meeting next week to discuss sending more troops to the Persian kingdom, but said they needed Ochanomizu's approval. The professor got annoyed and told the caller he wouldn't change his mind no matter how much they pressured him. He insisted he wouldn't allow more bloodshed, whether of humans or robots. The caller mentioned a request from the United States of Thrace, but Ochanomizu said he didn't care because robots weren't made to be weapons. Then, Ochanomizu received a call from his grandson, Takashi. Takashi said the previous hurricane had struck far from the shore, and now he was playing with his dog, Bobby. Ochanomizu asked if they were getting along, and Takashi confirmed it. He knew about newer dog models than Bobby's since he got Bobby 2 years earlier, but still thought Bobby was the best and they played a lot. Takashi asked what Ochanomizu was doing, who replied that he was fixing a robotic dog much older than Bobby's model. Takashi said he'd talk later. Ochanomizu then called Nakamine Trading Company to look for a KD model amplifier and an RSC controller. The company rep said those models were very old and no longer made. The rep added that those specs had been updated 4 years ago. Ochanomizu thanked him for the help, looked at the dog, and said scientists had changed those specs before, but he'd do his best to fix it himself. He kept working on the dog and eventually sighed in despair, realizing help wasn't coming. He thought the dog must have fought hard to survive, and its previous owners must have loved it dearly. Tears came to Ochanomizu's eyes when he noticed the dog still trying to play despite its exhaustion. Early the next morning, Yojiru knocked on the professor's door and said someone claiming to be the dog's owner was there. He wanted to check the man's ID and search him first. Ochanomizu said it wasn't necessary, and to let him in right away. Later, Ochanomizu welcomed the man, who thanked him for everything he'd done for the dog. He said he had been searching for it for a long time using a tracking device, but never imagined the great Professor Ochanomizu would be the one examining his dog. Ochanomizu offered him tea and asked if he was also robotic. In surprise, the man asked how Ochanomizu felt when the dog died. Did it make him sad? Did he feel sorrow during the Central Asia War? Ochanomizu asked who exactly he was. The man said his name was Goji. Ochanomizu remembered Goji as the man who was said to have created the robot army for the Persian kingdom. Goji told him his life was now in Ochanomizu's hands and ordered him to summon Adam because he needed him to fight someone. Ochanomizu shouted, asking if Goji really thought he could force him to summon Adam like that. Goji said he must send Adam to the only hurricane site in Japan, which was also where Ochanomizu's grandson was. Meanwhile, the hurricane was rising from the depths of the sea, observed by Takashi. Ochanomizu stood firm and told Goji his threats wouldn't work. He wouldn't let Adam fight another robot no matter what. Ochanomizu challenged the man, claiming to be Goji. If he really was Goji, did that mean the genius scientist from the Persian kingdom was a robot? Goji answered that he didn't know if he was a genius, but had built a robot capable of generating hurricanes, a very deadly robot. Ochanomizu said robots wouldn't kill humans because scientists made them under Article 13 of the robot laws, and had developed a multi-layered security system to counter worst-case scenarios. Goji said Ochanomizu was a great scientist who developed many advanced robots that looked almost human, but asked what would happen if robots nearly became human. Ochanomizu insisted robots would never kill humans. Goji laughed mockingly and called Ochanomizu's attitude hypocrisy. He then asked if Ochanomizu wanted to test his theory now and see if he would be killed. Ochanomizu asked again who he really was, reminding that the Central Asia War started with rumors about Dr. Goji building an advanced robot army for the Persian kingdom, along with weapons of mass destruction robots. Goji asked who accused him. Ochanomizu said the United States of Thrace, which formed a committee to investigate. Goji asked what the committee found. Ochanomizu said nothing, concrete only piles of abandoned robots. Goji said despite that, the entire Persian kingdom was burned to ashes. Ochanomizu then asked if Goji was after revenge on members of the previous Bura investigation committee. That was why he was trying to destroy Adam and other advanced robots worldwide. At the same time, Takashi called his grandfather, saying a strange kind of hurricane was not moving, and Bobby's eyes wouldn't stop glowing. Ochanomizu told him to do whatever Bobby told him and assured he'd call back. Goji said he had no choice but to contact Adam, but right then, the police arrived at Ochanomizu's house. Ochanomizu looked at Goji and asked if he had destroyed Yojiru outside, explaining the police come if Yojiru's signal stops. He asked if Goji had stalled that long just for the police to arrive. Suddenly, there was a blast on the roof, and Adam fell inside in front of Ochanomizu. The professor asked if he was okay. Meanwhile, Goji escaped through the hole Adam made in the roof. Adam tried to chase him, but Ochanomizu stopped him. Outside, a policeman ordered the others to pursue Goji. Ochanomizu asked Adam how he had gotten there. Adam said he received a signal from Bobby, Takashi's dog, and had called the police immediately after realizing something was happening. Outside, Outside, the police chased Goji until they found him lying on the ground. From inside him came an army of cockroaches crawling quickly while carrying something. The officers noticed Goji's electronic brain was missing. Adam told Okanamizu that Yuran had flown to Takashi's house after they received Bobby's signal. Meanwhile, Yuran was on her way to Takashi's house as the hurricane intensified. Bobby tried pulling Takashi into the basement. Suddenly, the hurricane struck the house. Elsewhere, Abdullah was calling out to his wife Fatima and their 2 children, Murad and Lulu, as the place was completely destroyed. The scene shifted back to reality where Abdullah met with his man and asked about Pluto. The man told him that Pluto's system had already been installed. Abdullah concluded that everything had been taken over. Meanwhile, Takashi's house was destroyed by the storm. He tried to rescue his mother, who was injured by the hurricane. Bobby helped him, and together they carried her to the basement. Bobby then went outside where Oran arrived. Oran asked Bobby about Takashi and his mother, but Bobby only trembled, staring at the storm. Oran tried to calm him and asked again about Takashi. On another side, the police were on their way, as were Okanamizu and Nakamura. Nakamura reassured Okanamizu that he would save his daughter. Okanamizu revealed he knew the person responsible. He asked Nakamura to contact Europol, explaining that Dr. Guji, who had built an army of robots, was targeting the world's most advanced robots. A robotic officer said Detective Gijesht was handling the case, so Okanamizu ordered Nakamura to contact Gijesht, mentioning that Adam was on his way to the hurricane site. Adam was trying to reach Oren, but the signal was weak. Oren told him not to come, saying he should stay away. The hurricane intensified, reaching its peak. Adam arrived and told Oren to escape with Bobby to the basement. Suddenly, a deep lightning vortex appeared. Adam rushed toward it and entered. Later, Oren and Bobby woke up, finding Adam lying a few steps away. Oren ran to him, wondering if he was dead. Elsewhere, Gijesht woke up after having a nightmare. Helena rushed to him and asked if he'd had the nightmare again. Gijesht reassured her it was different from usual. Helena advised him to call Professor Hoffman in the morning. Gijesht apologized for waking her, and Helena said she was already up finishing some drawings before their trip. Meanwhile, Adolf was on top of the building opposite, aiming his weapon at Gijesht, trying to kill him but trembling with each attempt. Someone informed an anti-robot figure that Adolf was trying to kill Gijesht. The man said he wouldn't let Gijesht be killed now, as it would turn public opinion against them, and ordered Adolf to be eliminated. In the morning, Gijesht met with Professor Hoffman and told him about the unusual dream he had, but admitted he discarded it and feared remembering it. Hoffman praised that approach and said it was better not to open it as it might be a virus. He advised Gijesht to act like humans and throw away bad memories, explaining humans discard painful experiences in an emotional trash bin. Gijesht told him there's a man constantly watching him, whether he's driving or at home. Hoffman said that's understandable given Gijesht's line of work, but doubted the stalker would follow him to Japan. Hoffman asked if Gijesht planned to leave that night, which he confirmed. Hoffman wished him a good trip and said they'd discuss the stalker if it bothered him after he returned. Then Hoffman left. Elsewhere, Adolf was driving, saying he had to kill Gijesht today. He suddenly changed direction, heading to his brother's grave where he asked for strength to kill Gijesht. Suddenly, his car exploded completely. Adolf wondered what was happening. At the airport, an announcement told passengers to head to gate 68. Gijesht and Helena went there. Helena asked if Gijesht was feeling better, and he said it was their first vacation in a long time, so they should relax. Suddenly, Gijesht got a call about an explosion. At the same time, the TV reported that at 2 a.m. Central European time, the famous robot Adam had died. Shocked, Gijesht staggered, asking if the killer was still alive. That meant the dream happened at the same time as Adam's death. Gijesht asked his trash bin to open the dream. He saw Adam telling him that he and Pluto were the same robot, and asked if Gijesht was the one who killed him. Fragmented memories chased Gijesht, then Helena ran to him quickly. During the dream, Gijesht saw Dr. Tenma urging a child named Tobio to walk toward him, repeating that Tobio had walked. Suddenly, Tobio fell apart and turned into a robot. Gijesht also saw his wife Helena telling him Tobio had walked. Suddenly, Gijesht woke up in Professor Hoffman's lab, after Hoffman wiped his memory and reprogrammed him. Hoffman asked if he was okay. Gijesht removed the devices, confirming he was fine. Someone told Hoffman that Gijesht's functions were restored. Hoffman tried to convince Gijesht to rest since he collapsed at the airport, but Gijesht insisted on getting up to respond to an emergency call. He quickly put on his jacket. Helena said she was happy, he was okay, but he apologized for canceling their vacation. Helena said it was fine. After Gijesht left, Hoffman told Helena he understood her concern about Gijesht going back to work right after collapsing, but she said it was better than going to Japan, where Adam had died. Elsewhere, Adolf was being interrogated about his car explosion. Investigators said it was deliberate and suggested someone held a grudge, maybe an assassination attempt. Adolf told them to stop asking and said he had no idea about it. Two detectives watched from behind glass. One said the forensic report found parts of an MZ-390 among the wreckage. The other reacted in shock, calling it an integrated rocket launcher designed as an inhumane weapon. They wondered if Adolf was an illegal arms dealer. The first said Adolf worked in import-export, but his brother's identity was suspicious. During the interrogation, the detective asked Adolf about his brother. Adolf angrily interrupted, invoking the Bloomberg civil rights law that prohibits blaming relatives for suspects' crimes during questioning. The detective in the surveillance room ordered his subordinate to keep Adolf under watch because the case involved an MZ-390 deadly weapon. He told him to keep it between them, without informing prosecutors or others involved. The interrogation ended, and Adolf returned to his office. He received a message from his wife at 8:32 asking him to at least call her, acknowledging he was busy and didn't come home last night. Later at 12:13 p.m., he got an anonymous recording warning that an anti-robot group was targeting him and that the leader had ordered his elimination, confirming he was in danger. Adolf linked the explosion incident to the leader's attempt to get rid of him. The leader appeared and told Adolf he had heard about the threat and that his life wasn't safe outside, so he should always stay in his office. Adolf panicked and ran around the office, saying maybe they planted a bomb there too. Then he left the office in full panic. Gigesh caught him and introduced himself as Europol, hired to protect Adolf. Later, Adolf's son Hans spoke to Gigesh, asking what happened to the villain in the story was he caught. Adolf interrupted, and Hans ran to him, saying Detective Gigesh was truly a super robot and kind, making him one of his biggest fans. Gigesh greeted Adolf with, "Good morning," but Adolf said they were leaving. In the car, Adolf asked Gigesh to stop telling his son stories about super robots. Gigesh said he didn't mean to. Adolf was surprised and asked how a world-class robot like him got assigned to protect Adolf. Gigesh replied he just follows orders. Adolf asked if that was even at the expense of his vacation. Gigesh suspiciously asked how Adolf knew about his vacation. Adolf nervously said he heard it from his boss. Gigesh asked if Adolf hated robots, apologizing for having to be guarded by one. When they arrived at the company, Gigesh checked Adolf's office for explosives. He said the place was completely safe after checking everything and told Adolf he'd wait in the next room, just needing to be informed if he felt anything. Adolf kept blaming himself, wishing he had the tools to destroy Gigesh. Then he confronted Gigesh, saying he knew the police hired him to investigate Adolf, not protect him. Gigesh tried to speak, but Adolf cut him off, saying the police thought the car explosion was due to suspicious actions by Adolf. Adolf told Gigesh to investigate him as much as he wanted, on the condition that he leaves after finishing the inquiry. Gigesh sat at Adolf's computer and started checking it. He learned that Adolf dealt with importing and exporting computer parts and systems. Gigesh noticed Adolf had traveled to the Persian kingdom during the Central Asia War. Adolf explained he went because post-war reconstruction created job opportunities, and many companies took similar steps. Most companies can't succeed by handling top-secret projects like this one. Adolf proudly said his company enjoyed extra trust due to its solid track record. Then he turned on the TV, and news broke about the discovery of the body of the famous robotics expert Ronald Newton Howard, found early that morning in the Australian suburbs. Dr. Howard was known for discovering photon energy. The murder weapons were placed on his head, shaped like horns. Adolf sarcastically asked Gigesh if Dr. Howard wasn't the creator of the robot Epsilon. He then asked if Gigesh should go console his friend Epsilon since his creator was killed, but Gigesh said he was already on the job. Adolf asked if Gigesh was the same detective who handled earlier cases of this kind. He added that the killer was the same person behind the previous crimes. Gigesh explained many copycat crimes had been committed lately, and there was no definitive proof it was the same culprit. Adolf said he had something interesting to show on the computer. He asked if Gigesh knew about Karatiba prison. Gigesh said it's a prison in the Persian kingdom run by the United Trachea States. Adolf said his company was contracted to install all the systems in that prison, but the team noticed someone tried to erase the solitary confinement recordings. When they tried to fix the surveillance systems, the malfunction was serious, forcing them to replace the hard drives. They then discovered an important recording of a prisoner inside the prison. Adolf played it for Gigesh, but the footage was blurry at first. Gigesh pushed Adolf aside and carefully tried to clarify the distorted video. Adolf said the prisoner kept repeating the names of members of the Bora Investigation Committee, as if cursing them with murder. Gigesh asked Adolf if he knew what type of prison Karatiba was. Adolf replied it was a prison for war criminals. Gigesh corrected him, saying it was for the most dangerous war criminals. Suddenly, Gigesh's eyes widened as he managed to clarify the video image. He stood up abruptly, grabbed Adolf by the collar, and asked why he kept such important information to himself. He explained that the one on the video was not an ordinary prisoner, but the supreme leader of the former Persian kingdom, Darius XIV. At the same moment, Gigesh heard Darius repeating the name Professor Hoffman. He said Hoffman was in danger. Meanwhile, Epsilon arrived at Professor Hoffman's lab and took him without any explanation, flying him through the air. While flying, Hoffman was shocked as he saw his lab explode. Epsilon told him he was a target and needed to be taken away from there. Hoffman asked if Epsilon was supposed to be a peaceful robot. Epsilon replied that his creator had been killed and he was on the verge of losing control. At the same time, Gigesh tried to contact Hoffman but couldn't reach him. Adolf suggested Gigesh go to him personally. Gigesh said he was more worried about the data in his possession. He explained that Darius might be involved in this case, and possibly in an assassination attempt as well. Suddenly, a thermal bomb was thrown at Adolf's desk, but Gigesh noticed it, caught it before it exploded, and told Adolf to get down. After defusing the bomb, Adolf said in terror that he'd seen bombs like that during the Asia War, which instantly turned people into charred remains. Gigasht asked who he exactly was. Adolf ran to Gigasht and said he would tell him everything but asked for protection for himself and his family. Adolf confessed to being a member of the anti-robots organization, but the leader wanted to get rid of him, believing he was a traitor. Adolf knelt and revealed that his organization was responsible for killing the Berlin robotic judge some time ago. Gigasht calmed him down and promised to arrange for him and his family to enter a witness protection program. Meanwhile, the organization's leader was informed that Gigasht was protecting Adolf. The leader scoffed, but his subordinate said it was only a matter of time before Adolf revealed everything about the organization. The leader handed the subordinate the same weapon Adolf carried and ordered him to kill Adolf, shouting, "Death to machines and traitors." As Gigasht drove Adolf to a secret hideout, Adolf asked about his wife and son. Gigasht assured him they were safe and would join soon. Elsewhere, Hercules was giving water to Professor Hoffman, while Epsilon explained he was forced to bring Hoffman here for protection. Hercules said he'd take care of Hoffman to avoid a fight. He added it was no problem because they needed bait to lure the enemy out, but they couldn't rely on someone who kept fleeing even after his creator's death. Epsilon then questioned Hoffman about the secret conference Hoffman and two other scientists held in Kimberly 7 years ago. They met there with Professor Howard. Hoffman recalled he was eager to meet the inventor of photon energy. The conference included a third scientist named Tenma, the inventor of the electronic brain. Epsilon asked what the purpose of the conference was. Hoffman said the three aimed to share their research to build a more advanced robot that would end wars and save the planet. Hoffman said he and Dr. Howard presented their research, but Dr. Tenma never revealed his, only telling them that the ideal electronic brain would be able to feel suffering, hatred, and make mistakes. Hercules asked if Tenma had stolen Hoffman and Howard's research, and fled. Hoffman said Tenma understood their work immediately, despite it not being simple research. Tenma was a genius with a perfect brain. Hoffman recalled Tenma's final words at the conference, warning them against bringing robots and humans too close, saying it would create something terrible. Epsilon asked where Dr. Tenma, creator of Atom, was now. Meanwhile, Ochanomizu tried to contact Dr. Tenma. He remembered when they first met, and Ochanomizu apologized that he would become his successor at the Ministry of Science, expressing regret at seeing the creator of the perfect electronic brain leave the ministry. Tenma told him that electronic brains can't be made but grow through emotions. However, according to Article 13 of the Robotics Rights Protection Law, robots are equipped with a control device to suppress emotions, which hinders the growth of their electronic brains. Ochanomizu told him that despite this, he managed to build a masterpiece like Atom. Tenma said Atom was a failed invention. Right then, Ochanomizu was informed that contact with Tenma was impossible because his line was lost. Meanwhile, Hoffman told Hercules and Epsilon that Tenma disappeared completely after the Kimberly conference. They were surprised by Tenma's appearance at the conference, but lost track of him afterward. Epsilon asked if Tenma attended only to warn them against making robots too human-like. Hercules asked if Hoffman thought Tenma created a perfect robot. Hoffman said maybe. On the other side, Detective Lehman contacted Gigasht. Gigasht told him he had received confirmation from Hercules that Hoffman was safe. Lehman asked how they were analyzing the video data taken from Adolf. Adolf told Gigasht to let him hear what was said. Lehman confirmed that the footage was indeed of Darius, and that the words he repeated were the names of the Bora Investigation Committee members, but they weren't sure he actually ordered the killings. Lehman added that the Persian kingdom fell victim to war after the Bora Investigation Committee withdrew, possibly making Darius resentful towards the committee. Gigasht recalled the committee didn't find any weapons-level robots. Lehman said there was classified information about a special chip developed to create a highly advanced electronic brain found during the Bora Committee's investigation in the Persian kingdom, and that chip was named Tenma. Lehman then told Adolf that the investigation into the anti-robots organization was still ongoing, but other parties might be after him because of the information he had. Adolf asked about his family. Lehman assured him they were safe and in their custody. Later, Gigasht stopped for a break, and Adolf rushed to the bathroom. When Gigasht checked the bathroom, he found a multi-purpose cleaning robot inside. Later, the robot knocked on Adolf's door and ordered him to kill Gigasht if he wanted to save his family. Adolf rebelled and destroyed the robot. Gigasht ran in and told Adolf to stop destroying the robot, then angrily lifted him up. Adolf asked if Gigasht killed his brother with the same expression. Meanwhile, Ochanomizu recalled his conversation with Tenma about electronic brains. Tenma told him that a brain capable of hatred and killing would create the greatest robot on the planet. Later, Gigasht drove his car at full speed, haunted by memories of Adolf's brother. At the same time, Adolf kept pressuring him, reminding him he was nothing but a killing machine. Gigasht finally reached the secret hideout. When Adolf got out of the car, he mocked the hideout, calling it just a wooden cabin. Gigasht told him the cabin was equipped inside with the latest security systems. Then Gigasht got back in his car, said he'd be back in an hour, and ordered Adolf to stay inside the house no matter what, assuring him that his wife and son would join him soon. Adolf reminded him that he was supposed to protect him, but Gigasht didn't listen and activated the car's flight mode, soaring upward. Adolf recalled the cleaning robot urging him to kill Gigasht, telling him a weapon was hidden under the cedar tree 200 steps north of the secret hideout. Shortly after, Adolf's family arrived, his son running to hug him, asking about Gigasht. Elsa, his wife, asked what was going on, and Adolf apologized for worrying her. Elsa pressed for answers. Meanwhile, Gigasht visited Brau again. Brau asked how he was feeling while Hans played around in the cabin, telling telling his father the basement was like a nuclear bomb shelter and even had a gym. Elsa kept questioning Adolf, who finally told her the whole truth. She said Gijist might have killed someone, but in the end, they were talking about her brother. Then, Elsa sadly declared her brother deserved to die because of countless crimes that gave her chills just thinking about them. Adolf argued that even so, his brother didn't deserve to be killed by a machine. Elsa insisted Gijist was only following orders, that was his duty, and assured Adolf that Gijist didn't kill his brother out of hatred. Meanwhile, Brau told Gijist he knew from the moment they met that Gijist killed Adolf's brother out of hatred. He said it was obvious because Gijist resembled him. Brau added that memory wouldn't be erased no matter how much his creators tried, because the scar would always remain. Gijist then remembered blurred memories of Adolf's brother begging him to spare his life, but Gijist didn't listen and immediately drew his deadly weapon against him. Right now, Brau asked Gijist to feed his desire to clearly remember the true hatred. At another location, the emergence of WBK's hero, the god of war Hercules, was announced. The scene shifted to several robots fighting fiercely with deadly weapons, exchanging fire during the battle. It was said Hercules would face a strong opponent this time because dominance goes to the strongest until a stronger one defeats them. A police armored vehicle arrived to take Professor Hoffman away. As Hoffman climbed into the vehicle, he glanced at Hercules and Epsilon, saying Gijist was investigating the current case and asked them not to act recklessly but to help Gijist find a solution. Hercules assured him they would. After Hoffman left, Epsilon sensed an abnormal electromagnetic energy and told Hercules. He asked if Hercules needed help, but Hercules refused, saying he wasn't authorized to assist him. Epsilon said he wasn't cut out for fighting anyway. Hercules claimed the Opposite was built as a battle machine and told Epsilon to leave quickly, saying a robot without combat functions would only slow him down. Epsilon accused Hercules of looking down on him again, like when he refused to fight in the war. Hercules admitted maybe Epsilon was right to refuse because, although he was made for combat, that war wasn't really a fight. Hercules then recalled a robot from the air squad who fought alongside him and helped complete many missions, but he noticed that robot kept washing its hands repeatedly. When Hercules asked why, the robot said it couldn't get rid of something. Back to reality, Hercules told Epsilon that they were fighting a ghost. The enemy was a ghost and ordered him to leave immediately. Epsilon asked why Adam was killed even though he had done nothing wrong. Hercules said nothing while Epsilon kept questioning what he knew, claiming he had knowledge about the war. Suddenly, a storm blew up. Epsilon told Hercules he would wait for him at 30 kilometers high. Hercules said he could collect combat data from that height, and that he fought better when there was an audience, even if it was just one person because, after all, he was Hercules, the god of war. Later, Hercules took Brando's memory chip and told him they had fought many battles that would go down in history, without a clear winner or loser. He wished they could have resolved things back then. Putting on his battlesuit, Hercules said he would settle the score with that thing. He launched himself into the suit and charged toward a hurricane that erupted from nowhere in the middle of the sea. Hercules entered the eye of the storm and grabbed something. From above, Epsilon observed the battle and noticed a circular gap spinning rapidly inside the hurricane. Elsewhere, the 99th military trial was underway. Judge Darius XIV immediately ordered the oath to be sworn. Darius said God did not believe in oaths. The judge repeated his command to swear the oath, but Darius responded that humans lie, so God doesn't trust them. Darius then continued, saying humanity needed to be replaced by a new species, the robots. The judge ended the session and ordered Darius removed from the courtroom. The crowd erupted, accusing Darius of mass murder and blaming him for the massacre. Darius defended the massacre as a stage of evolution. The crowd grew angrier, demanding his execution. Someone shouted that they were from a human rights organization and offered help to Darius. He asked for coloring pens. Meanwhile, Epsilon awaited the outcome of Hercules' fight against the enemy. Suddenly, robot parts scattered into the air. Epsilon wondered if those parts belonged to Hercules. Then, the parts mixed with enemy parts, leaving Epsilon confused about whether Hercules had destroyed the enemy or if the enemy had destroyed him. Looking toward land, Epsilon saw the body Hercules used in daily life falling into the water. He wondered what was happening, confirming that robot parts were spreading all over the sea, but unable to detect anything due to electromagnetic waves interference. At the same time, Hercules kept fighting, holding the enemy's horns determined to break them. Then Epsilon thought that if he helped Hercules now, they could get rid of the enemy. But before Epsilon could move to aid Hercules, he began losing control of his body. He couldn't even move and was attacked by confusing memories. At the same time, the enemy overpowered Hercules, tied him up with his tail, and lifted him up. In the prison, the two guards told Darius that the electricity cutoff time had passed, but Darius ignored them and kept drawing and coloring on the wall. When the guards opened the cell, they found Darius saying that Pluto would be the only survivor, while Epsilon witnessed Hercules' death and immediately escaped, saying he had to inform Gijist since he was the only one with the authority to arrest the enemy. However, Epsilon failed to reach Gijist, who at the same time was driving and recalling Adolf's accusations that he had killed his brother. Later, the investigator asked Gijist to focus on a new case involving two robots brought to identify their son's body. The robot told his wife that humans cry in situations like this, then shared how they applied to adopt a child once the robotic child adoption project started, expressing joy over adopting this little robot. Gijist introduced himself to the investigators, saying he was involved in the case. One investigator said involving a robot might be a bad idea since robotic children were being kidnapped and torn apart, possibly by someone against robots. Gijist said he was following orders and would investigate all possibilities behind the kidnappings. The investigator explained that kidnappers seized robotic children every time after the surveillance system was destroyed, totaling 23 missing children. They set up BCom AI cameras at 304 sites, but were informed that all robot and anti-robot haters were spotted elsewhere during the incidents. This suggested all suspects had alibis. News later spread that investigator Gijist had joined the case. Gijist confronted his boss, Baker, asking why he told the media, and Baker said it was a tactic to show the public Gijist's dedication, which would prevent his involvement in future crimes. Investigator Henry told Gijist they narrowed down robot hater suspects to 7 people who weren't caught on cameras and were in the EU during the crimes. They were all under watch now. Gijist asked if failure rates of BCom AI 3 systems before and after the incidents could be compared. Henry said the manufacturer had that data. Henry added the system was top quality but still prone to failure, 3.26% failure over the past 3 years, and 3.25% after the incidents, even though the crimes happened after the system was destroyed. Meanwhile, a robotic child was reported kidnapped in Sector W25. Gijist got orders from Baker to head to the scene immediately. He called Helena to apologize for the emergency, but she told him something that made him return to Henry, asking him to find causes for BCom AI 3 failures because he couldn't access the case data. Henry noticed Gijist seemed off, but Gijist insisted on focusing on the task. Henry quickly showed all system failures over the past 3 months, 3 outages caused by lightning, 38 issues with control chips. Gijist asked Henry to compare this with data from the previous 3 years. Henry said the rate was almost the same. Gijist concluded the culprit didn't destroy the systems. Henry mentioned one case yesterday showed a human destroyed a system, but no kidnappings happened that day. Gijist asked Henry for a list of maintenance contractors near the kidnappings. Seeing the list, Gijist said kidnappings began with system repairs, not failures. Henry said only one person was responsible for system repairs and showed his photo to Gijist, who hurriedly ran out without responding to Henry's calls. Elsewhere, Adolf searched near a tree for the weapon the cleaning robot told him about, but was caught by Mayer from Europol. Mayer asked what he was doing. Adolf asked if Mayer was looking for the weapon to return it to their secret hideout. Mayer said that while stopping near the forest on his way there, cameras spotted a suspicious man being followed. Investigations showed the man was part of an anti-robot group. Mayer added they knew Adolf's movements, so he needed to be moved to another location. Suddenly, Gijist returned. Mayer scolded him for leaving without permission, warning he'd report it, but the priority was protecting Adolf. Gijist said he heard and would move Adolf immediately. Adolf asked if Gijist had abandoned his mission. The killing of his brother wasn't part of it. Gijist said his duty now was to protect Adolf. Later, Gijist drove Adolf and his family. Hans asked where the bad guys would come from. Gijist said the detective's car behind them was watching their back and reassured him not to worry. Hans asked if Gijist's arm would turn into a gun if enemies appeared. Hans mentioned school lessons that robots couldn't shoot people. Adolf said if it came to that, Gijist would definitely fire. Suddenly, Gijist noticed the detective car disappeared and lost connection. He asked Elsa if they were being chased, then ordered everyone to fasten their seatbelts and said he would speed up. Driving at full speed, Gijist said the police car vanished in an instant, so the weapon used might be. Adolf finished, saying it was a cluster gun like the one he had. Adolf pleaded with Gijist to help him, or at least his son and wife. He told Gijist what the robot said at the rest stop, that the group planned from the start to kill them together to hide their truth. Adolf admitted he hated Gijist for killing his brother and said Gijist must understand what hate felt like. Otherwise, he wouldn't have killed his brother that way. But he warned not to drag his family into this because this was between them. Gijist told him to hold the lever on his right side. Suddenly, the pursuer fired a rocket at Gijist's car. Gijist was thrown up, holding Elsa and Hans in his arms, while Adolf safely fell to the ground thanks to the lever. The pursuer got out of the armored car and aimed the rocket at Adolf, saying a regular gun would be enough to kill him, but the commander wanted it to look like he died in an explosion caused by the cluster gun. At that moment, Gijist appeared and aimed his weapon at the pursuer. The pursuer asked if Gijist wasn't allowed to shoot with his right hand and reminded him killing a human was forbidden. Gijist told Adolf to slowly come to him and stand behind him. The pursuer said his gun could tear them apart even if one was made of zirconium. When the pursuer fired, Gijist fired a rocket from his handgun at the same time. There was a huge blast. The pursuer stood shocked. Gijist told him his left arm fired a sleeping gas and told him to surrender calmly or lose consciousness. Later, Gijist was taken for repairs. Adolf told him his brother was one of the worst criminals and that Adolf tried to kill him to avenge his brother, but the brother used his body as a shield to protect himself. Gijist said that was his duty. Then Gijist asked Adolf if hatred fades in humans or stays no matter how much they try to erase it. Adolf stayed silent. Gijist said his biggest fear after learning hate was himself. Meanwhile, someone watched Oren from a school window, telling 2 others that Oren used to be very cheerful but has been trying to stay alone since the incident, proving how advanced a machine she was. The principal interrupted, saying robots feel sadness and cry just like humans. A robot named Sakamoto agreed, saying even an old model like him can feel sadness. The principal wondered what they could do to bring Oren out of her sadness, adding she wasn't alone in mourning Adam. Suddenly, Oren stood up and said she felt a sadness deeper than her own coming from somewhere. She ran to a spot in the garden where she found a small cat. She picked it up and wondered if the cat was the sad one and where its mother was. But the cat wasn't the source of the sadness. Oren continued to a child with his back to her. She asked if he was sad. He told her to leave him alone, but Oren said there was no point in jumping from here. The child turned toward her, his face bruised, explaining he was bullied daily and threatened for money. He knelt before her, saying death would be better. Oren said she didn't understand the desire to die because she was a robot. The child asked how a robot could understand that and told her to leave him alone. She said she was very sad because her brother was killed, but asked if it made sense that she would want to die after him if she were human like him. Oren looked at the cat she held, saying it was sad too, but was only thinking about milk to fill its hunger. The child asked if the cat had been abandoned. Oren moved closer and placed the cat in his hands. The child said the cat was shaking from hunger and needed to be fed. Oren ran off asking the child to get milk for the cat because she felt someone even sadder nearby. While heading toward the sad person, Oren stumbled upon a wallet, picked it up, and kept walking. She found an old man halfway along the path and asked if he was looking for his wallet. The old man took it, saying he put his retirement card inside to buy a gift for his grandson. He thanked her, and Oren continued searching for the sad person until she reached a cemetery. There, she saw a bouquet of flowers on a grave. Oren said the person whose great sadness she felt had just been here and seemed to have felt the loss twice. She read the name on the gravestone, Tobio Tenma. At the Ministry of Science, the secretary told Minister Uchanamizu that the Prime Minister had called several times. Uchanamizu snapped at her to tell everyone he didn't want to discuss holding an official funeral for Adam, saying he hadn't given up yet. He asked her if there had been any reply from the former minister yet. At the same time, he heard security guard Okanomizu stopping someone from entering, saying they needed an appointment first. Otherwise, security couldn't verify their identity. The man said it wouldn't be a problem because he was the former head of the Ministry of Science. Then Ochanomizu ran toward the man, calling him Dr. Tenma, telling him he had been waiting. He was the only one who could save Adam in his condition, since he was his creator. Tenma firmly replied that Adam couldn't be saved. He was dead and had only come to say goodbye. Then Tenma stood before Adam's body connected to machines in a room and remembered Tobio, a version resembling Adam, with whom he had shared a meal. Tobio told him he studied in the morning and cleaned his room in the afternoon but got distracted by an insect encyclopedia he found in the library. He was so fascinated by a beautiful butterfly called Zephyrus that he forgot to finish cleaning and wished to see one alive. Tenma asked him how he liked the food, and Tobio said it was delicious. Outside Adam's room, a researcher ran to Okanomizu and told him that Dr. Tenma was trying to revive Adam. They rushed to the data monitoring room, where Ochanomizu saw Tenma working to resuscitate Adam and update his data. Another researcher wondered if they were witnessing true genius. Okanomizu said he expected Tenma to do this, even though he had said he was just there to say goodbye. Later, Ochanomizu brought Tenma a cup of tea, telling him he needed rest after working non-stop for 18 hours. Tenma said he noticed the great repairs on automno abnormalities in his artificial heart, or either half of his brain. He'd checked the receptor adjustments and the neural synapse splits. Everything was perfect. Okanomizu asked why Adam wouldn't wake up, then remarked that they were facing a case involving the destruction of the world's most advanced robot and the killing of former Bora Investigation Committee members. Suddenly, Okanomizu asked Tenma about Dr. Goji, who built the robot army for the Persian kingdom. Tenma said he didn't know him and clarified that the AI Goji developed shouldn't be used to build a robot army, since the robots powered by his AI were nobler and more complete than that. Tenma admitted he made a perfect robot at someone's commission, despite warning that it would be costly. He explained that the world's most advanced AI, including Adam's, had extremely complex but limited programming. So, he analyzed and programmed 9.9 billion personalities, the world's entire population, and tested them all on his perfect robot. Tenma shocked Okanomizu by saying the robot ultimately refused to wake up. Though it was very complicated, he managed to awaken it by triggering unbalanced emotions like love, anger, and hatred. Okanomizu asked where that robot was now. Tenma said its owner must have hidden it, and it was still asleep. Okanomizu asked if Adam had the same issue. Could he be feeling something indescribable that caused his response? Would Adam not wake for the same reason the perfect robot didn't? Okanomizu warned that giving Adam unbalanced emotions could create a completely different new Adam. Tenma said that Adam might return as a monster. Then Tenma recalled sitting with Tobio, saying the real Tobio had died in a car accident and never liked cleaning his room. Tobio told him he wouldn't clean his room much from the next day. Tenma said his son always hated studying. Tobio said then he wouldn't study. Tenma said Tobio put the encyclopedia he bought on the top shelf of the library and never looked at it. When Tenma asked if Tobio loved him, Tobio said yes. Tenma admitted he was harsh on his son, always scolding him, so he was sure Tobio hated him. Elsewhere, Gigesht had returned to work. Hoffman tried to contact him, warning him not to come back since he was still in the middle of repairs with cluster cannon fragments inside his body. But Gigesht was soaring in his vehicle over a desert-like area. Then Epsilon contacted him, saying he desperately needed help. Meanwhile, Gigesht arrived at Darius' prison. After verifying his identity, they let him in. He was met by Colonel Armstrong from the Thracian States Army. Gigesht introduced himself, while the colonel said his forces hadn't joined the International Criminal Law Treaty, and Gigesht's clearance was granted by a special presidential order. The colonel stressed that time was limited and the mission had to be completed quickly. He added that though their prison was modern, their robots were outdated, but if they could get advanced robots like Gigesht, the Persian kingdom could be rebuilt fast. Later, Gigesht connected with prisoner Darius, but refused to communicate electronically at first, wanting a face-to-face meeting. Still, the interrogation continued. Gigesht asked Darius about the prison conditions. Darius said they weren't bad. Gigesht protested again, insisting on meeting Darius in person. The colonel warned that would break international laws, but Gigesht didn't care about their relations with Europol because the whole world was in danger. Finally, Gigesht met Darius, who looked completely human. Gigesht asked if he was behind the series of advanced robot destructions and the assassination of Bora Investigation Committee members. Darius called the committee liars who turned his country into a barren desert, stealing their civilization because of their damned machines and AI. Gigesht asked if Darius made a monster out of revenge. Darius said he didn't make it, it was born. He claimed that Robot was the strongest, purest, and loved by God. Gigesht, surprised, asked, "Born?" Darius explained that it was a robot reborn in a stronger, tougher body. He pointed to a flower painting on the wall and said, "This is Pluto." Gigesht asked who Pluto was, and Darius said he was sure Gigesht knew. Then Darius bit his tongue trying to commit suicide. Gigesht immediately called for help. Afterwards, Gigesht left the prison and reported what happened to his superior. Suddenly, Epsilon collapsed before him and gave him something related to Hercules. Epsilon said that while killing Hercules, huge electromagnetic waves were released, and their analysis showed these waves were full of hatred. Despite this, Epsilon showed Gigesht a picture of someone and said it couldn't possibly be Pluto. Later, Gigesht wandered through the market, where vendors were displaying their goods. Meanwhile, Gigesht's boss kept in touch with him and ordered him to return immediately, saying they would handle Darius's suicide attempt themselves because the Thracian states were strict. Gigesht thought to himself that he was tired of that boss's ways. Baker continued, saying they were worried about Darius's physical condition. Professor Hoffman feared that the Zeronium power inside him had weakened due to the cannon explosion. Gigesht thanked the boss for his concern and assured him that he was close to solving the case. The boss asked if he had any idea who was behind all this. Gigesht said he had what they called intuition. The boss asked how a robot could have intuition. As Gigesht continued walking, he was surprised when a robotic flower seller tripped and fell. He helped the robot get up, and the robot thanked him, saying his balance had been off ever since he was damaged in the war. Gigesht told him to take care of himself. The robot offered to sell him flowers, saying he accepted credit cards, but Gigesht said he didn't have time. Later, Gigesht met Abdullah at a cafe. Abdullah introduced himself as the Minister of Science of the Persian Republic. After they shook hands, Gigesht ordered coffee, and Abdullah told him to relax and speak freely since he was a scientist. Abdullah then shared that he had lost most of his body in the last war. Gigesht apologized, but Abdullah thanked him for meeting, saying he wanted to show how the country was rising from the rubble after the war and how markets were reopening. Abdullah noticed the robotic flower seller watching Gigesht from a distance and asked if the robot was his friend. Gigesht said he had just met him. Abdullah went on to say that although their country's economy was improving, children were still marginalized in society. Then Abdullah asked why Gigesht wanted to meet him. Straightforwardly, Gigesht asked about Abdullah's relationship with Darius XIV. Abdullah said they were on good terms, as Darius often spoke about turning the desert into green fields. Gigesht asked if he meant flower fields, then asked about someone named Goji. Abdullah confirmed the flower fields but denied knowing Goji. Gigesht said it was impossible because he heard about a genius scientist named Goji who helped build an advanced robotic army under Darius. Abdullah said Goji's name appeared in the Bora Investigation Committee reports, but his existence was never proven, meaning stories about Goji were just rumors. Gigesht asked about the Tenma AI model that had been recovered. Abdullah said Dr. Tenma and that genius scientist created an absolute AI so advanced that the robot never woke up. Rumors said the robot was still asleep in Darius's palace. Abdullah asked why Gigesht didn't check things out for himself. Abdullah then excused himself for a tight schedule, preparing to leave. Before leaving, Gigesht showed him a photo of a man in a flower field, the same photo he had gotten from Epsilon, and asked who he was. Abdullah said he didn't know. Gigesht shook his hand and thanked him for his cooperation, apologizing for his initial confusion about whether Abdullah was human or robotic. Abdullah said it was no problem, and mentioned having had the same confusion when he met Adam. Gigesht confirmed yes, Adam was a very advanced robot. Then Gigesht told Abdullah that his device had just identified him as human, especially when Gigesht showed him the man's photo, and Abdullah lied about never seeing him, which robots can't do. Abdullah left the cafe without explanation. Gigesht stepped outside and found the robotic flower seller still waiting and asking him to buy flowers. Gigesht warned him that his employer would be angry if he kept pestering customers like that. Then, as Gigesht walked on, he stopped suddenly when he heard a luck charm vendor promoting the Goji Sand Sage charm. Gigesht repeated the name Goji charm. The vendor said Goji was a legendary sage who turned into sand after revealing life's truths to the ancient Uzbek king. Gigesht looked at the charm and remembered Abdullah's words about the robot that never woke up. The flower seller approached from behind, and Gigesht took a flower from him, asking his name. The seller said his name was Muhammad Ali, and that he wanted to become a scientist. Gigesht told him he could achieve his dream if he studied hard. The flower seller asked if Gigish thought he could be like Sahad. Gigish, surprised, said, "Sahad?" The seller explained that Sahad was the man in the earlier photo. Gigish showed him the picture, asking if that was the person meant. The flower seller said yes. Sahad studied in the Netherlands to turn the land into flower fields, and was his hero. Gigish encouraged him, saying he could definitely become like Sahad and never lose hope. Gigish began investigating Sahad and arrived at the house Sahad rented. The landlady told him Sahad lived in a room on the 3rd floor and that he had planted all the flowers on the windowsills there. Gigish said they were beautiful. The landlady explained Sahad studied botany and that the plants he planted were still growing after many years. She recalled asking Sahad if he knew any plants that bloom year-round without wilting. He said flowers must wilt after producing seeds. Gigish asked for a photo of Sahad. The landlady said she definitely had one, but it was on her old computer. She asked Gigish to come back later and promised to look for her old computer in storage. He then asked if Sahad had done anything wrong since someone from Europol was investigating him. Gigish answered no. The landlady said Sahad was so kind that no one realized he was a robot. Later, Gigish checked Sahad's school. His teacher said Sahad was an excellent and passionate student whose love for his country surpassed everything else. He dedicated himself to filling the Persian kingdom's desert with flowers. The teacher added that Sahad's research was very advanced. One day, he told the teacher that Ugor had become strong. Another time he said Janus was sick, and later that Ishtar had improved. The teacher explained that those were tulip flower names Sahad gave to help them grow better. The professor apologized to Gigish, saying he didn't mean to offend, but though Sahad was the most advanced robot, he sometimes said unscientific and unrealistic things. He took Gigish to his lab to show a tulip flower Sahad planted, still growing and not wilting. Gigish asked how many years it had been growing. The professor said 3 years, and that Sahad had told him not to plant it in the ground until he returned. If Sahad didn't come back, the professor planned to study the flower himself. He said he felt the tulip was also waiting for Sahad. Later, Gigish stopped in front of a flower shop. The shop girl asked the robot Anton to deliver a bouquet to Mr. Van Dyke's shop. Gigish said Anton was a hardworking worker. He shared that he met a flower seller in the Persian kingdom who wasn't happy with his job. The girl said that was Sahad's country, and that Sahad used to visit her shop, helping manage it after his studies. Sahad always said he wanted to fill his country with flowers, but suddenly once told her he would return to his country and join the army. The girl said sadly she tried to stop Sahad because someone like him should not become a soldier, no matter how long the war lasted. Sahad told her his father died in the war and he might share the same fate. Gigish asked the girl about the tulip flower that was still growing since he knew Sahad named all the flowers. The girl said Sahad repeated many experiments at a research site in Zandam to develop a flower that could survive in the desert. Sahad wanted many of that flower, but one day he went to check his flowers and was surprised only one flower was growing while all the others around it had wilted. The girl believed the flower was called Pluto. Later, Gigish returned to the landlady, who told him she found the computer. Gigish started flipping through pictures of the tenants until he came across a photo of Saad. He told her the photo was cut off, and the owner explained that Saad had said he was photographed with his father. Gigish thought for a moment and figured since Saad is a robot, he must resemble his maker, who is his father. Then Gigish discovered that the other half of the photo belonged to Professor Abdullah and was shocked. On the other side of the photo, there was a doll sitting on a seat in a dim place. She said Gigish was getting closer to the truth, confirming his amazing investigative skills and outstanding ability to complete missions. Given that Gigish possesses the Zeronium weapon, he might be the most powerful weapon of mass destruction ever. Because of this, Pluto might lose to him, but there is a way to kill Gigish. Events unfolded as Gigish went to meet Brow, who told him he was jealous because he was trapped in this body and couldn't move. Brow asked if Gigish knew who was behind all these events. Gigish said Professor Abdullah. Meanwhile, Epsilon witnessed scientist Howard's funeral. Suddenly, he was startled by Abdullah's voice behind him, saying he couldn't believe he had met him, and Abdullah introduced himself. Epsilon asked if Abdullah had traveled all the way from the Persian kingdom just to attend the funeral. Abdullah replied he wished he had met Professor Howard while he was alive, adding that history will record Howard's contributions to photon energy development. Abdullah continued, saying Professor Howard helped end the dictatorship in the Persian kingdom as a member of Bora's investigation committee and contributed to restoring peace in the kingdom. Then Abdullah turned to Epsilon and told him Howard left him behind. He admitted he was impressed with Epsilon's level of perfection. Epsilon said he heard about losing most of his body in the war. Abdullah responded that loss couldn't compare to losing a family. Meanwhile, Brow understandingly said Gigesht hadn't just come to visit him, but to tell him that Abdullah was responsible for the series of events. Gigesht asked what would happen when the robot gains absolute artificial intelligence. Brow said the robot wouldn't wake up, because simulating 9.9 billion personalities on Earth is endless. Gigesht then asked how to wake the robot, and Brow replied it needed to be given extreme emotions like hate, anger, and sadness. On the other side, Abdullah told Epsilon that the robot's power must have weakened after its maker's death. Epsilon said he didn't need great strength. Abdullah said he had heard about Epsilon's refusal to fight in the war, and confirmed he was right since the war wasn't fair. It took everything from him, his wife and children. Tears fell from Abdullah's eyes as the funeral ended. Abdullah asked Epsilon about the most important thing in his life, but before he could answer, Epsilon's adopted children appeared. Epsilon apologized and told them the funeral was over, and that they were going home. The children gathered around him, and Abdullah said he heard Epsilon had adopted war orphans and begged him to take care of those kids for his sake. Abdullah then said he should attend the European Robots Conference because rebuilding the Persian kingdom would need more amazing robots like Epsilon. After Abdullah left, the children told Epsilon that Wazili was missing. They started looking for Wazili, who was hiding behind a tree. When they found him, Epsilon hugged and reassured him that they were no longer on the battlefield, but Wazili kept repeating, Bora. Meanwhile, Brow told Gijesh that once the absolute AI robot regains consciousness, it will lie to others and also to itself. Gijesh asked about Pluto. Brow said Pluto must be in his place, getting repaired from the damage he took in his fight against Hercules. Gijesh said the Persian kingdom is Saad's homeland, but Brow corrected him, saying it's Pluto's homeland, the tulip flower. At that moment, Gijesh sped off in his car and called his boss, saying they must arrest Abdullah immediately. His boss asked what he planned to do, emphasizing that Abdullah was a very important person. Gijesh told him he was heading to the Persian kingdom's agricultural research facility in the Netherlands, specifically in Zaandam, near Amsterdam. Meanwhile, the researchers praised Professor Hoffman's speech, saying he deserved all the recognition he received. One thanked him for attending the European Robots Conference despite all his difficulties, and asked if the security arrangements were satisfactory. Hoffman confirmed he managed to attend thanks to those measures. 2 robot guards arrived, informing Hoffman that the helicopter was ready and they would secure the area first. One guard said the whole robotics field depended on Professor Hoffman. Before boarding, Hoffman asked his guard about the bathroom. The guard said it was checked, so Hoffman said he'd be fine alone and went there. Abdullah met him in the bathroom and praised his speech, saying he was moved by his comments about how Zeronium could contribute to peace. Abdullah introduced himself as being from the Persian Republic. Meanwhile, Gijesh went down to the basement of the agricultural research facility and found a regular electricity generator. He noticed the electromagnetic waves were weak there, but they matched the signals Epsilon recorded during the Hercules battle. As Gijesh continued inside, one of Abdullah's followers blocked his path. Suddenly, the man opened his mouth and vomited cockroaches that filled the floor. At the conference headquarters, Abdullah shook Hoffman's hand, saying he was glad to meet him since he was Gijesh's maker. Hoffman asked if Abdullah needed any help regarding the Persian kingdom. Abdullah said zirconium was an ideal metal, so they might consider lifting restrictions on its supply. He added that the criminal destroying the most advanced robots couldn't defeat Gijesh since he was made of zirconium, though he had recently heard that Gijesh was damaged by a cluster cannon. Hoffman confirmed that was true, but the damage to Gijesh wasn't severe. Abdullah said, so, Gijesh has no weaknesses. Hoffman told him that Gijesh has multiple layers of advanced control systems built into him. Abdullah asked, what would happen if Gijesh made a mistake, like killing someone? Meanwhile, Gijesh fired a projectile at one of Abdullah's followers, but was surprised to see multiple copies of that follower. Gijesh wondered what was protecting them. Abdullah continued talking with Hoffman, asking about a past killing machine named Brow, who described his crimes as executions, just like humans do when they commit murder. Hoffman asked Abdullah what exactly he meant by that. Abdullah said the Persian kingdom executed Brow after he and the Bura investigation committee entered the country. Hoffman fell silent. Abdullah then apologized, saying that peace had come to the Persian kingdom thanks to this. But still, a machine must be executed if it kills a human. Hoffman told him that Gijesh wouldn't make such a mistake. Abdullah said an advanced machine like Gijesh might even commit suicide. Hoffman replied that authorities could erase those memories from Gijesh before he contemplated that. Suddenly, Hoffman remembered when he asked his director, Schilling, about what was done to Gijesh's memory. At that moment, Abdullah said he envied machines for having the ability to erase their memories. Meanwhile, Gijesh was running in the basement. He received a call from Europol headquarters saying they had located Abdullah in Dusseldorf, attending the machine conference. Gijesh ordered Abdullah to be arrested immediately. The caller added that Professor Hoffman was in the same place for the conference. At the same time, Hoffman took the elevator with his robotic guard, who asked if everything was okay. Suddenly, the robot got angry for no reason, saying those who harmed the Persian kingdom should be executed. Gijesh, at the same place, was making calls to secure Professor Hoffman's safety. Suddenly, Gijesh sensed something moving nearby. At the Dusseldorf building, security was everywhere. Someone ran up and asked Baker to check the elevator camera. Baker saw a monster trapping Hoffman inside the elevator, heading to the helicopter landing pad on the top floor. Baker ordered to chase the elevator, but someone said the other elevators were out of order. Hoffman asked his guard if anything else could be controlling his AI. Then Hoffman heard Baker's voice through the elevator, telling him to stay calm. Suddenly, the robot blew the speaker. Hoffman asked if it killed the other scientists. The robot said it must be executed. Meanwhile, Baker called and said Hoffman was kidnapped. Gijesh replied he would get there as fast as possible but was currently in a battle. Back in the elevator, Hoffman told the robot he felt responsible for what happened to the Persian kingdom, but said killing wouldn't change anything. Another guard stopped the elevator and asked the robot to open the door. The robot got out, slammed the other guard against the wall, and broke him. Hoffman asked who he exactly was. The robot said, Bura. At the same time, police arrived at the helipad and noticed cockroaches scattered on the ground but paid no attention. They then saw the robot dragging Hoffman on the floor. Baker ordered to open fire on the robot. Meanwhile, Gijesh continued fighting Pluto and fired at him. Pluto caught Gijesh by the tail, but Gijesh said his body was made of zirconium, so thermal or magnetic rays wouldn't affect him. Gijesh freed himself from Pluto's grip, and Pluto quickly moved back, disappearing with a huge cloud of ash behind him. him. Guy just wondered if Pluto buried himself alive. He told his superior, Baker, that he had captured the target and asked how Hoffman was. Baker said Hoffman was fine and ordered Gaijish to destroy the target, but when Gaijish aimed his gun, the place suddenly changed completely. He found himself standing in the desert, surrounded by citizens crying. Gaijish said those illusions wouldn't affect his AI. The scene shifted to a flower field, with a person repeating, Pluto. Gaijish told him that he was Sahed, not Pluto. The scene quickly changed to Sahed telling Abdullah he received news that he had been killed in the war. Abdullah told him he was alive, but that these people took away his wife Fatima, his daughter Lola, and his robotic brother Murad. Abdullah grabbed Sahed's shoulders and ordered him to save their country and take revenge for their family. Sahed said, revenge only breeds more revenge. Later, Abdullah asked Sahed to let him install his brain into the strongest body. The two stood together in front of something, and Abdullah's face lit up as he told Sahed he loved him. Meanwhile, Baker ordered Gaijish to destroy the target, but Gaijish refused, saying he wasn't programmed to destroy a machine that didn't intend to attack. Baker yelled at him to destroy the target to solve the case. Gaijish insisted on refusing and requested to resign. Baker told him he was developed as a robotic investigator and had no right to resign. Gaijish requested a year-long leave. Then he asked if Professor Hoffman was safe, affirming that he had reviewed the camera footage recently and asked about the robot dragging Hoffman. Gaijish added that Hoffman was in danger. Then someone called Gaijish and asked him to exchange the hostages. Gaijish asked who the caller was, but the person ordered him to stay away from Pluto, promising Hoffman's release in return. Gaijish moved away from Pluto despite Baker warning that he violated rules by acting without permission and would be severely punished. As Gaijish moved away, the robot dragging Hoffman suddenly collapsed. Police rushed in and caught the professor. Gaijish left the scene, telling Sahed that his father didn't love him. Then Gaijish contacted Helena, who told him she was ready to take a work break. He said he had finished his work order and that this time, they would really go to Japan. Helena said he would join the next mission, but he asked why they didn't apply to adopt a child. She said they already did. Gaijish said laws had evolved and so had robots, so they could now find a suitable child. He said if they had children, he wouldn't feel lonely. Helena agreed. Gaijish ended the call, saying they'd talk after he got home. Then he checked on Hoffman, who said he was fine. Hoffman asked if Gaijish was hurt during the monster siege. Gaijish said no. Hoffman advised him not to face the monster again because his body wasn't in the best condition. At least they now knew who was behind all these incidents. Gaijish said Abdullah was the culprit, but he was annoyed by Oichinomizu's claim that the culprit was Dr. Goji. Hoffman told him to rest since his body was made of zirconium and he was suffering from metal fatigue. Another shock could end him. Gaijish said he felt like he had discovered the truth behind his dreams, so they might not haunt him again. Then he disappeared before explaining anything to Hoffman. Meanwhile, military forces spread inside an agricultural research facility in Zandam for underground research. They reached the place where Gaijish trapped the target, and Baker ordered them to destroy the target at once. At Europol headquarters, Schilling ordered Baker to contact Gaijish. Baker called Gaijish, who was on his way to Amsterdam. Schilling told him he had an AI malfunction and needed immediate maintenance, then had to report to the advisory committee. Gaijish asked why he wasn't punished, saying he deserved execution for his crime. Why was his memory erased instead? Gaijish ended the call and went back to the same flower shop, asking for a bouquet for his wife. When the florist asked what kind of flowers, he told her Sahed was still alive. She asked if Sahed did something wrong. Gaijish said Sahed wasn't guilty. He took the flowers and kept walking until the florist from the Persian kingdom blocked his way. She asked why he was in the Netherlands. Confused memories flashed through Gaijish's mind before he fell to the ground, hit by a projectile from the florist robot. Later, news announced that a robot agent was killed yesterday in Old Amsterdam. The victim was Gaijish, one of the most advanced robots in the world. They found a small robot holding a cluster gun collapse near Gaijish's body, the same weapon that had harmed Gaijish weeks ago. Events unfolded rapidly, and Hoffman met Oichinomizu, introducing Helena, Gaijish's wife. Oichinomizu bowed and offered condolences. Helena told him that Gaijish had been looking forward to visiting Japan and had booked the trip before his death. Oichinomizu's guards said they needed to leave before the media noticed. Helena left with them while Oichinomizu and Hoffman stayed behind. Oichinomizu asked if he thought Gaijish's death was part of the series of robot destruction crimes. Hoffman said they were also in danger. Helena turned and said the air in Japan smelled exactly like soy sauce, just as Gaijish had told her. Then Helena strolled with Oichinomizu and Hoffman. They noticed Helena imitating humans pretending to enjoy themselves. Hoffman said Gaijish's memory seemed tampered with at Europol. Oichinomizu said that wasn't a good sign. Hoffman said he had researched but found nothing. Then he looked at Helena and said he wanted to erase her memories of Gaijish for her sake, but she begged him not to. Later, Helena met Dr. Tenma at the inn and gave him Gaijish's memory chip, wondering if it could help find the culprit. She said she couldn't handle the overwhelming sadness from Gaijish's memories. Tenma told her that humans cry in such cases, and advised her to imitate humans by crying too. Earlier, Professor Tenma stood in front of a face-covered robot in the lab. Abdullah then entered and asked about the robot's condition. Tenma responded, saying that if the robot were human, he would say it was dreaming. When Abdullah tried to uncover the robot's face, Tenma stopped him, explaining that the robot's synthetic skin rapidly simulates the 9.9 billion programmed personalities, so it can't imagine how ugly its face might be. Abdullah replied that maybe creating a perfect robot was impossible after all. He then asked Tenma how to wake the robot up. Tenma said there was only one way, but it could turn the robot into a demon. At that moment, Okonomizu called Tenma and told him that Helena, Gij's wife, had returned to her country and he wished he could meet her, as she was worried about Adam. Okonomizu added that while scientists usually focus only on technical results, Helena's kindness deserved attention since she seemed on the same level as Adam. Tenma kept walking as Ochanomizu informed him that the National Parliament had set a date for Adam's official funeral. Tenma entered a room and remembered Helena asking if Gaijist's death would be in vain. Holding Gaijist's memory chip, Tenma reassured her that humans call these things souls and promised to take care of her husband's soul. Tenma recalled telling Abdullah earlier that he would add unstable emotions to wake the robot. He thought to himself that unbalanced anxiety was the simplest way to solve the randomness of the 9.9 billion personalities. Tenma then entered Adam's room, looking at Gaijist's memory chip and saying he accepted becoming a demon to awaken the robot. Meanwhile, Epsilon felt Gaijist's hatred before he died and wondered who the hatred was directed at. Another robot approached Epsilon and said he had a very strong visitor. Later, the visitor introduced himself as Hogan from the Defense Agency at the Ministry of Science. Hogan noticed heavy rain in Epsilon's area, and Hogan explained he was assigned as his bodyguard because Epsilon became the next target after Detective Gaijist's murder. Hogan admitted his own power wasn't on Epsilon's level, but considering Epsilon's ability to maintain his photon energy despite the rain, he needed to get him to a safe place. Epsilon asked about the children's fate. Hogan said they couldn't get involved. Epsilon mentioned it was his birthday and that the kids were preparing a surprise party, but he already knew. Later, the kids threw the birthday party, giving him gifts like a necklace and a hat. They also made him a sun symbol because he loved the sun so much. A child told him the sun would cheer him up even on rainy days. Epsilon said he was already happy. A few steps away, Mrs. Griffith said these kids had lost their families in the war, but to them, Epsilon was their son. Meanwhile, Wasley sat alone. His companion asked about a picture he drew of Epsilon and urged him to show it. When Epsilon came closer, Wasley opened the picture and said, "Bora ate it." Then Wasley began singing about a giant who made the South Pole in the desert, released a river of fire, summoned floating glaciers, caused pouring rain that led to a massive flood, and swallowed the fire, glaciers, rain, and even the earth. After finishing, Wasley laughed, and the kids thought he was just joking. Later, Epsilon sat alone briefly. Hogan reminded him they had to leave, but Epsilon asked for 5 more minutes. Then, Epsilon contacted a robot named Arnold, asking if he had records of unusual weather events in the Persian Kingdom 3 years ago. He showed Arnold Wasley's drawing and asked about anything similar. Arnold quickly checked and said that 3 years ago, in the Persian Kingdom, there was smoke like that caused by artillery shells in a battlefield. Arnold also asked if some of the kids Epsilon adopted were from that area. Then Arnold noticed something huge inside the smoke. When Epsilon asked what it was, Arnold said it was impossible to analyze the data. Hogan urged Epsilon to hurry. Epsilon said goodbye to the kids and promised to return. The kids asked what would happen to the rest of the birthday party. Epsilon said a last-minute job came up and told them to be obedient until he came back. Before leaving, Epsilon looked back one last time at Wasley. Epsilon remembered when he had visited the Persian Kingdom before. A soldier told him to watch his step because it was dark. Epsilon lit up the place. The soldier then reported to his commander that he had brought Epsilon. The commander introduced himself as Colonel Scott of the United Nations Forces and asked if he was the Epsilon who refused to join the army, noting his slim build despite being a robot. Scott mocked Epsilon, calling him a coward, but said at least he could help clean up after the war. Then Scott took Epsilon to the basement and said his mission was to melt all the robot bodies, guessing he'd finish quickly thanks to his photon energy. Epsilon asked incredulously if he really had to do that to the robots. Scott explained they were advanced robots, but their AI chips had been removed, so they were just piles of dolls. Epsilon objected, saying he heard robots' rights were recognized in the Persian Kingdom. Epsilon asked what happened to the AI chips after removal. Scott said he had no idea and ordered Epsilon to finish the job fast. While Epsilon stood there alone, Scott told him over the speaker that the countdown to the operation had begun, but Epsilon heard a human voice and said there was still someone alive there. Scott said they'd checked and it was impossible, but Epsilon insisted on searching for the living being. He ran outside and found Wasley hiding in the rubble. Epsilon asked him to come out. Wasley came out, whispering Bora fearfully. Soon, Scott and his forces arrived, telling Epsilon they'd take care of the boy, and he just had to complete his mission because time was tight. Epsilon returned to the robots and melted them with his energy. Later, Epsilon met Colonel Scott, who said it had been a long time since they last met, and that Epsilon was now a general. Scott praised Epsilon's excellent work back then, saying it was like an explosion. Scott told Hogan that Epsilon had great power, and it was ridiculous to think they were the ones protecting him. He added the place was like a fortress and a safe home. But since Epsilon was the last advanced robot in the world, losing him would be a major blow to the whole planet. Scott continued, sharing data from Detective Gaijist that identified the enemy as Pluto. However, Pluto's brain had an AI installed by another robot named Sod. At that moment, Epsilon asked Scott about the meaning of Bora and its connection to the robot bodies he destroyed. He also wondered why the Bora Investigation Committee was formed in the first place, and why they found those robot bodies. Epsilon told Scott that his life was also in danger now, and this wasn't the time to keep secrets, because Pluto's power was terrifying everything, and even greater was the power that could consume the earth itself. Scott asked what Epsilon meant. Hogan said it was the same song Wasley had sung. On the other side, the kids were singing that same song as they played, while Wasley sat alone, withdrawn. His companion told him everyone loved his song. One girl asked the robot Deacon why he seemed distracted. Deacon pointed to the sky. All the kids looked there, eyes wide with surprise. Meanwhile, Epsilon sensed an imminent threat to his children. He told General Scott he had to return to Australia immediately. Back with the kids, the tornado started forming out of nowhere. Thick black smoke rose amid everyone's shock. Epsilon ordered the general to take his men and escape immediately. Scott said the defense system could respond to any attack and they weren't cowards like Epsilon, thinking about running away. Epsilon grabbed Scott by the shoulders, insisting he had to leave now. Suddenly, a fiery blast erupted, like an explosion, and Epsilon and Hogan were thrown into the air. When Epsilon insisted on going back to save the general and his men, Hogan said it was too late, they had all vanished. Epsilon said he was responsible for everything. Hogan replied that Epsilon had been targeted many times in the past 3 months, and the general likely was too, part of Bora's assassination attempts. Epsilon looked at the destroyed fortress, noticing it resembled horns. He said he had to return to the kids immediately. Hogan asked what kind of destructive power that was. Epsilon said it was Bora's power, and wondered if Bora was just a doll. At the same time, Oran was sitting at school with Principal Ban in front of her. Oran told him she had just sensed 2 huge waves of sadness in the world. The principal looked at the Pinocchio story Oran was reading, and said Pinocchio struggled to understand the human heart, but told her she had a heart bigger than most humans. Meanwhile, Epsilon's kids watched the tornado approach, and debated whether to run or stay. One guessed they'd be fine if they stayed home. The tornado grew terrifyingly, spinning into a dark storm. It closed in on their house until it crashed through the windows, breaking the glass. At that moment, the children huddled together in a corner, frightened. Suddenly, Hogan fell in front of them and told them to gather around him. The kids ran to Hogan, who shielded them with his body and told them to duck down and protect their heads. Then Epsilon appeared as a beam of light, piercing through the tornado until it vanished inside, creating a massive fireball. Wasili suddenly remembered when Epsilon first reached out to him, trying to save him. At that instant, 2 huge beams of light shot into the sky, fragmenting the force and causing it to fall to the ground in pieces of a robot structure. The tornado began to disappear, and the children noticed 2 suns appearing. Afterward, Epsilon landed on the ground, and the kids gathered around him all except Wasili, who stood back and called Epsilon by name for the first time. Wasili thanked Epsilon deeply and broke down crying. Epsilon embraced him in a touching moment. Meanwhile, Oran stared intently at a page in a book, saying it was Pinocchio. The director asked what she meant. Oran replied, "The sad boy, like Pinocchio, finds himself in a dark place like the belly of a whale wherever he goes, but he doesn't want to be a puppet or controlled by anyone." She continued, "This boy thinks he acts on his own, but hatred controls him. He's not the only one being controlled. Geppetto is just another puppet." Oran said she wanted to talk more with Geppetto, but he had left. At the Ministry of Science, Tenma asked Achinomizu if he could request to postpone Adam's official funeral. Achinomizu said he certainly could, and Tenma thanked him. Elsewhere, Epsilon's children were playing tag, and Griffith cheered Wasili on to run faster so his friends wouldn't catch him. Wasili kept running until a friend knocked him down. Griffith asked if he was okay, while one of the kids warned that Mr. Simon was coming. Mr. Simon approached and greeted Mrs. Griffith, saying the weather was nice today. He asked about Epsilon, and she said he was in a hearing. Somewhere else, Epsilon met with several people. One asked if he had defeated his enemy, and Epsilon confirmed it. The man said he thought robots didn't lie. Epsilon insisted he had defeated the enemy. Another person asked why he failed to protect General Scott, pointing out that everyone in the safe house disappeared in an instant. Epsilon explained that attack came with a different weapon. The meeting members showed the scattered parts found near Epsilon's orphanage after the battle, asking him to examine them. Epsilon recognized them as the left arm of a Persian Kingdom robot, originally designed for environmental development but later converted for military use. One of them then said they knew Epsilon's anti-war views but worried he might be too lenient with the enemy again. Epsilon replied, "No matter how many times they fight, the enemy will never be his opponent." On the other side, Simon met with Griffith and told her she surely knew the rumors about that orphanage and the whispers about Epsilon, a robot, being a father to human children. He said the Child Services Agency didn't have a problem with a prominent human like her working in childcare, but the problem was Epsilon. Griffith said Epsilon loved those children more than any human. Simon responded that still, humans should take better care of those kids. Simon looked at his colleague Mr. Johansson and said Johansson was ready to help care for the children. Johansson assured he would make sure the child he'd adopt would have a happy life. Simon noted Johansson was a well-known figure in Oslo. Johansson said he and his wife had visited the orphanage many times and were determined to help Wasili, hoping for a positive response. Griffith asked why they chose Wasili out of all the children. Suddenly, a helper knocked and brought Wasili in. Johansson approached him and tried to talk, but Wasili was scared, clutching the helper's clothes. Johansson asked if he had ever seen snow before. Just as Griffith was about to tell Johansson that Wasili didn't want to go with him, Simon whispered that Johansson was willing to pay a large sum to the orphanage, then asked, "Would you deny a child the chance to be adopted by ideal parents just because he doesn't want to?" Later, Epsilon arrived at his orphanage, and the children ran to greet him. Griffith told them to let Epsilon rest, because he must be tired. Epsilon noticed Wasili was missing and asked the kids, who told him Wasili had had gone with the rich man. Epsilon yelled at Griffith, demanding to know what was going on and where Wasili was, and Griffith said there was no other choice. Somewhere, Johansson ordered Wasili to keep walking behind him, wondering how many times he would stop. Wasili followed slowly. Johansson said the job would be done once he got him inside and warned him not to cause trouble. Meanwhile, Hogan told Epsilon he had tracking results, showing Wasili was taken to Vigeland Castle in Oslo, but the man who took him Johansson did not actually exist. In another place, Johansson opened a door and brought Wasili inside, telling someone he had brought the boy. When Wasili saw Abdullah's face, he was shocked and stepped back, fearfully repeating, "Bora!" Abdullah covered Wasili's mouth, telling him not to scream loudly or he would punish him. Abdullah dragged Wasili along, calling him a bad boy for seeing Bora. Yet, he said Epsilon would come to save him. Abdullah forced Wasili to watch Pluto and Wasili fainted. Abdullah told his monster that he had traveled that distance for him and there was no room for failure. He ordered it to kill Epsilon, the last one left, promising that everything would end afterward. Abdullah assured the monster it would win even with just one arm. Later, Epsilon wore the armor gifted to him during the Asia War. He told Hogan he didn't need it back then because he refused to enlist. Then Epsilon took Hogan with him, saying Wasli's life was in danger and the army might arrive any moment, but he knew he was the real target. Hogan asked why he didn't take out his enemy earlier, guessing he had the chance. Epsilon didn't answer and said he would go alone to avoid more casualties, but Hogan insisted on coming, promising to protect Wasli. At Vigeland Castle, Abdullah told Pluto that Epsilon would arrive any minute and ordered him to finish things by sunrise. At that moment, Wasli, who was tied up, shouted, "Bora!" Abdullah tried to strike Wasli with a stick, but Pluto broke it. Abdullah was surprised and asked if Wasli was defying his father, and since when he acted that way toward his creator. Then, firmly, Abdullah told Pluto he could return to his original body once the battle ended. Meanwhile, Epsilon and Hogan reached the castle. Epsilon said he was picking up a signal from Wasli and insisted on going inside. Hogan reminded him he was a photon-powered robot and had to wait until sunrise, but Epsilon said he had to rescue Wasli as soon as possible. Epsilon sneaked inside, with Hogan following. When they reached Pluto's room, Pluto pierced the door, grabbed Epsilon's tail, and slammed him against the wall. Epsilon ordered Hogan to rescue Wasli immediately. Then, a huge energy burst glowed from Epsilon as Pluto lifted him by the tail. Epsilon said his energy was running out while Hogan rushed to check on Wasli. At the same time, Abdullah ordered Pluto to kill Epsilon. While Pluto was closing in, he kept repeating, "The boy." Epsilon asked if he meant Wasli. Hogan called out to Epsilon, assuring him Wasli was safe. Epsilon confirmed Wasli was okay, and asked Pluto if Sahad was inside him and what Bora meant. As the sun rose, Abdullah shouted at Pluto to finish off Epsilon. Pluto then asked why Epsilon hadn't killed him last time or taken his chance before. Epsilon replied that the waves Pluto emitted told him he was sad. Pluto begged Epsilon to kill him now. Suddenly, fierce flames and blue light energy burst from Epsilon. Pluto urged Epsilon to use his photon power to melt him and begged for death. The scene quickly changed. Epsilon found himself in a flower field, and Sahad stood before him. Epsilon said they had to find his original body to restore the AI to it. He reached out to Sahad, who began to cry and said Bora must be coming. Elsewhere, the sun disappeared again. A huge black smoke storm appeared before Hogan and Wasli, swirling like a tornado around them. Epsilon shouted in confusion and surrounded Wasli and Hogan with his photon energy for protection. Meanwhile, Dr. Tenma took Oran to see her brother Adam. Back with Epsilon, Pluto cut off his head. Epsilon then saw blurry memories of his children. At Adam's side, Adam finally woke and opened his eyes. Oran asked if he recognized her, then called Dr. Tenma. Tenma explained he had added unstable emotions to Adam and was just waiting for him to wake up. But when Tenma started analyzing Adam's data, he was shocked by strange numbers. Oran told him a huge wave of sorrow appeared suddenly before Adam woke. Elsewhere, Hogan held Wasli tightly, preventing him from looking at Epsilon, who had turned into scattered light beams. Then the morning sun returned, and the giant shadow and Pluto disappeared. Wasli held onto Epsilon's hands, which were protecting him and Hogan during the fight by releasing photon energy, and continued to cry. Hogan saluted and said Epsilon wasn't a coward avoiding enlistment, but a brave warrior. On the other side, Tenma left after telling Oran she definitely read too many books, which made her good at poetic expression but unaware of true feelings. When Oran tried to stop him, she was surprised to see Adam wake up. She asked if he knew her, and Adam called for Epsilon and Gigist. Then Adam said there was a crack, and the earth was going to break apart. At Eden National Park, a tour guide was explaining to a group of people about an old legend. Long ago, in the land of Manukachi, there was a tribe called Nanabo. The Nanabo were peaceful people who hated fighting. One day, another tribe arrived carrying gold on their ships and told the Nanabo that whoever owned gold would be happy. The Nanabo traded some of their horses for gold. Soon, rumors about gold spread quickly, and the Nanabo gave up all their horses, then even their homes and valuable lands, following the advice of the gold-bearing tribe. In the end, the Nanabo lost everything. They moved to Mount Manabanzo and started throwing themselves one by one into its volcanic crater. Their spirits combined into a great giant who still sleeps sleeps inside the volcano. The legend says this giant will wake up one day at Eden National Park. After finishing the tale, the guide told the group they would be moving to the local reserve. Elsewhere, where a doll sat on a chair, the head of Thracia said the plan had gone exactly as intended. Looking at pictures of the world's most advanced robots, he said everyone was dead now, and Thracia town would thrive forever. Back in Eden National Park, the guide told the group they were facing Tsitsi Mar, the tribe's chief, whose role was to ward off evil. Someone asked the guide to translate the chief's words. The chief was saying that an evil spirit lurks beneath the ground, and when its anger ends, so will the world. At the Ministry of Science, the researchers told Okanamizu they had completed the transfer and were ready to face anything. Okanamizu entered the control room with his team and asked what they expected after Adam woke up. He also asked if Dr. Tenma's location was identified. The reply was no, so he wondered what Dr. Tenma had done with Adam. Later, Oren said Tenma added a specific program to Adam. Okonomizu asked which program. Oren explained that when Adam woke, she felt a great sadness exploding somewhere in the world. Suddenly, a researcher ran in saying Adam wanted a pen. When they gave it to him, Adam caused a huge mess. Okonomizu rushed to see the chaos, with Oren following, but he ordered her out of the control room. Oran shouted, asking what Adam was writing, while a researcher asked Okonomizu about the equation Adam was working on. Okonomizu revealed it was the blueprint for an anti-proton bomba formula that could destroy Earth. The researcher was shocked as Adam finished writing and dropped the pen. Okonomizu said Adam had finished writing the equation that would destroy the planet. Meanwhile, Tenma visited Brow. Brow said it was a great honor for a famous robotic scientist to visit him. Tenma told Brow Adam had awakened. Brow asked if Adam had greeted him like a son to his father. Tenma said he was amazed Brow knew that too. Brow added that when an AI like Adam wakes up, others notice. Tenma said Adam was the only AI that could be compared to. Then Tenma said he wanted to ask Brow a question. Brow said he'd listen if Tenma agreed to fix him. On the other side, Ochanomizu tried to analyze data from Adam, saying he wouldn't rely on Dr. Tenma's help anymore because he planned to restore Adam's original state. Suddenly, a researcher burst in with an emergency. Adam had escaped. Okanamizu watched as Adam broke through walls and couldn't believe it because those walls were supposed to be escape-proof. A researcher wondered where Adam had gone. Okanamizu ordered the army to help track Adam via GPS. Later, Okanamizu located Adam in Kodanshida, which wasn't far from them. He recalled Tenma telling him before that he had awakened the perfect robot by adding unbalanced emotions. He also remembered Oren's words about the program Tenma added to Adam. Elsewhere, Brow asked Tenma if he had added Gaijist memory to Adam, especially memories from his final moments. In another place, Adam walked in the rain. Near the same spot where the doll was trapped, the doll told Thracia's leader that Adam was alive and filled with immense hatred. The man said robots couldn't hate. The doll asked if he really believed robots couldn't hate, cry, or feel hatred. Meanwhile, Okonomizu was running through the streets searching for Adam, who stood in the rain in front of a bazooka shop. Adam grabbed the bazooka, and a memory flashed, a woman begging the police to save her son. Investigator Gaijist arrived, showed his badge to officers, who quickly took the child as the criminal wouldn't negotiate and set up a barrier ahead. Gaijist asked about the criminal's weapons. The officer said he had a military-style recoilless machine gun. Gaijist approached the barrier, dodged a bullet, and stopped just a few steps from the criminal, aiming his gun. The criminal threatened to kill him if he came closer. Gaijist spoke calmly to the kidnapped boy, Kurt, telling him he was a robot police officer whose gun would only kill the villain and promised not to harm him. Kurt began to cry. The criminal threatened to blow up Kurt's head. Gaijist told Kurt to think about those he loved. Kurt repeated, Mom, Dad, and Gaijist fired his grenade. The criminal fell to the ground. Gaijist jumped to save Kurt and held him, praising his bravery. Kurt ran right into his parents' arms. After the day ended, a scrap collector arrived and asked Gaijist to step aside so he could start working. The collector complained about the criminal causing a mess and said he had to check for recyclable parts before smashing everything. He started loading robot parts, saying he might make a good profit selling them to the robot hospital. Suddenly, Gaijist spotted something and told the crane operator to drop it. Inside, they found a moving robot. The operator said the robot's condition was worse than dead, and it was an old model with nothing usable left. But Gaijist took it from the operator. The operator said he'd give Gaijist the whole robot for 500 Zeus. Later, Gaijist carried the robot in his arms and called Helena to say he was on his way home. He had a surprise for her. Then, events unfolded quickly. Helena and Gaijist began watching the robot walk. Helena asked Gaijist if the child really was theirs. Gaijist told her that the child was theirs and that thanks to this child, he finally understood the meaning of life. The robot then called them parents. At that moment, Helena said they should name the child. Gaijist chose the name Robita. Later, someone killed Robita, the robot, and stole him, then threw the bag in front of Gaijist, apologizing for his mistake. But Gaijist fired at the culprit and killed him. Events continued. Gaijist remembered telling Adolf that he only feared himself after learning the feeling of hatred. The scene shifted to Gaijist being hit by a projectile from the flower seller robot, and he fell to the ground, saying hatred is pointless. Suddenly, Adam snapped back to reality after his memory finished displaying Gaijist's memory chip. Okanamizu approached him anxiously, calling his name. Adam told him he was fine now, and Okanamizu embraced him tightly, saying the hatred had vanished. Meanwhile, Tenma told Brow that one might think hatred disappeared, but hatred and sadness never fade, they quietly keep burning. Brow agreed and said Tenma was right. Tenma asked Brow where Abdul Abdullah was. Brow replied there was no need to look for Abdullah because he would come to him. After that, Tenma left Brow's place, got into a car, and told the driver to head to the airport. Suddenly, the driver turned and shot a red laser-like beam at Tenma, knocking him unconscious immediately. At the same time, Okanamizu, Tawash, and Nakamura gathered around Adam, who told them that Dr. Tenma had implanted Gaijish's memory chip into him and would reveal the truth Gaijish discovered during his investigation. Adam continued that Darius XIV had a plan to turn his desert kingdom into fertile land when he was a dictator of the Persian kingdom. He ordered Professor Abdullah to build a robot that could change the soil. This plan was called Project Bora. Tawash then said, "So Bora wasn't a weapon of mass destruction?" Adam explained that Project Bora had many setbacks. All the early robot models Abdullah created failed and were discarded, the same models Okanamizu and the others found in the robot graveyard. Then Abdullah had an idea to complete the project. He realized he needed a highly skilled assistant, surpassing human abilities. In other words, a robot with advanced artificial intelligence. To achieve this, a certain scientist was invited to the Persian kingdom. Okanamizu added that this scientist was Dr. Tenma. Elsewhere, Dr. Tenma woke up tied up. Abdullah appeared and told him he had heard about Adam's revival. Tenma asked if he had been kidnapped to lure Adam in. Abdullah untied him, saying it was no longer necessary. Tenma asked why he had been brought there. Abdullah looked at a huge object and Tenma, surprised, asked if it was Pluto. Abdullah said it was Bora, a masterpiece created by a genius named Goji. Abdullah said his plan was to implant his brain into Bora, thus creating the most advanced robot in the world. The only one capable of doing this was Professor Tenma. Tenma silently looked at Abdullah. Adam said that Professor Abdullah lost all his family in the war, which made him hate the world. Adam continued that Abdullah himself died in the war. Tawash and Nakamura said this was impossible because they had met Abdullah recently. Tenma told Abdullah he was neither human nor a man. Abdullah responded that he was closer to a robot since most of his body was lost during the war. Tenma told him he was a robot and had known him a long time ago because he created him when Abdullah asked for a perfect robot. Abdullah laughed. Tenma continued, the intelligence of this perfect robot was so advanced that it never woke up. Then Tenma recalled the war in the Persian kingdom and hearing news of Professor Abdullah's death during a bombing in the Timur area. The officer then showed a recording of Professor Abdullah during their attempt to rescue him from the rubble. Abdullah told Tenma there was a memory chip containing a copy of part of his brain. He asked the officer to hand over the chip to him. Tenma got the chip and learned it contained Abdullah's hatred. Later, Tenma added that chip to the perfect robot per Abdullah's wish, and the operation succeeded. The robot woke up with Abdullah's face. Okanamizu, Nakamura, and Tawash understood Abdullah's truth based on Adam's words. Returning to Abdullah, he told Tenma he was lying. Tenma told him that the most advanced AI could lie to others and itself. Tenma confronted Abdullah, saying the genius scientist Goji did not exist, and that he himself was Goji. Adam told the others that Goji was Abdullah, a robot born with a split personality. Back to Tenma, he told Abdullah he didn't need him for the implant process, because his AI had been transferred to other robots. Abdullah broke down, accusing Tenma of lying. Tenma said the whole world understood his suffering and now it was time to stop him. Professor Tenma began stopping Abdullah, but as he did, Abdullah collapsed, and many insects came out of him. Tenma noticed Abdullah's electronic brain was missing. Adam said Bora was no longer a robot designed to produce plant life, it had become a weapon of mass destruction. Tawash said they needed to inform everyone immediately. Adam said it was too late. The whole earth would be destroyed now. As Tenma faced a severe sandstorm with glowing debris scattering, military court session 108 began. Before Darius took the oath, everyone felt a growing earthquake. He remembered when he almost committed suicide, but Abdullah stopped him, saying that Pluto was finally complete and would take revenge for them and accuse them in the Bora investigation committee. Darius said the Thracians caused much harm. Elsewhere, the Thracian leader was told that Arnold, the robot, predicted a volcanic eruption about to happen. The leader said the robot would save many lives then. Arnold replied the volcano would erupt in Eden National Park. They examined Eden Park and discovered a large magma chamber 8 kilometers below the surface, containing 3,000 cubic kilometers of lava. The leader asked Arnold about the volcano's eruption cycle. Arnold said it erupted once every 5,000 years, with the last eruption 200 years ago. If it erupted now, it would release 100 million tons of ash and embers per hour, destroying hundreds of kilometers around the area. Arnold described the consequences, confirming most biological life would die within months. Suddenly, the military court judge contacted the leader, broadcasting Darius's trial. Darius said a massive bomb would explode in Thrace. The Thracian leader rushed to a doll who told him the robots would survive the explosion, and so would 10% of Earth's population. She said those survivors would be a gift for him. Arnold contacted Okanamizu and said that if the anti-proton bomb continued moving toward Eden Park, it would trigger the volcano. Okanamizu analyzed the data and predicted the eruption would occur in 72 hours. Arnold added this timing was also the 4th anniversary of Professor Abdullah and his family's loss. Arnold said Bora could be stopped only if approached near the surface before causing the volcanic eruption. Adam was the only robot who could stop it. Adam promised to take on the task, but first had to go somewhere. Adam went to meet Brow and asked about the next threat. They had a short discussion, and before leaving, Brow asked Adam to let him touch him. Meanwhile, a couple told Helena they had always dreamed of living in a house like this. Helena said goodbye, promising to meet them later to discuss the garden design. Helena continued on her way until Adam crossed her path. She told him Gaijist was inside him. Adam said he managed to come back to life thanks to Gaijist. Helena hugged him. Adam told her Gaijist thought of her until his last moment and that she wouldn't be alone even after he was gone. Helena cried and asked if he was trying to cheer her up. Adam assured her that robots don't lie. Helena recently realized that both she and Gaijist lost memories from some part of their lives, but she wonders if Gaijist has recovered those memories. Adam said that Gaijist had not regained any lost memories. After saying goodbye, Helena asked Adam to visit her again. Once Adam left, Helena said Adam had just lied to her about Gigish's memories. Adam then visited Gigish's grave, saying he was paying respects to everyone, as it might be his end. After that, Adam headed out to stop Bora and soon reached his destination, but Pluto blocked his way. Adam charged at Pluto, smashing him into a wall and causing destruction. Then the roles reversed. Pluto pulled out his tails and pinned Adam to the wall, trying to pierce him, but Adam caught them and said he would destroy Pluto. Adam broke a part of Pluto and told him his hatred was greater than Pluto's, reminding him that Moonblanc loved forests, North loved music, and neither wanted to fight, yet Adam killed everyone. Pluto tried to crush Adam with his grip, but Adam opened his hand, saying Brando loved his family and Hercules, and Brando were friends despite being enemies. Neither wanted to die. Even Epsilon was against war and refused to enlist. Pluto wrapped his tail around Adam again, and Adam said Epsilon adopted war orphans and loved them. Then Adam lured Pluto down and threw him to the ground, telling him that inside himself, he had Gigish's feelings and hatred. Meanwhile, Oren said she would stop Adam because there was still goodness in Pluto, so he wasn't using his tornado. But Director Ban stopped her, saying they couldn't do anything now. Meanwhile, Okonomizu was on a plane chasing Adam, having tracked him 75 kilometers away. At the same time, Adam was landing his final blow on Pluto and saw memories of all the robots who had died. At the end, Adam saw Gigish saying hatred was pointless. Adam collapsed, and Pluto got up, breaking down in tears. Adam asked why he was crying, but Pluto said he didn't know. Later, they lay side by side, and Pluto said humans believe that if they wish upon a shooting star, their dreams come true. Adam asked if Pluto would make a wish. Pluto said definitely. Adam told him he also wished for the same thing. Then Adam said it was time to go and dove upward, falling into a volcano. On the other side, Okonomizu was warned that Eden Park's condition was critical, but he insisted on landing the plane. Tenma called him, saying Adam might have killed Pluto, but the real problem was Bora, whom even Adam couldn't stop because Bora carried all of Abdullah's overwhelming hatred. Tenma said the land was doomed to destruction. Okonomizu replied that even if all humans were destined to die, they would never lose hope. Before stepping off the plane, Okonomizu told Tenma he was a genius scientist. Just like Goji made Adam, he made Adam too. Elsewhere, weather observers monitored earthquakes, saying it was caused by unstable Earth's crust at Eden Park. The doll told the president she would protect him, but that he would serve her for life. Okonomizu and Nakamura arrived at the volcano's mouth. Okonomizu said Adam was trying to disable Bora and the anti-proton bomb, but feared his body would melt. Meanwhile, Adam told Bora that Gigish taught him hatred was useless and must end. Bora fired many shards at Adam. Adam said he had to disable the bomb within 5 minutes before his body melted. Suddenly, Pluto caught Adam in his hands, saying he would protect him. Bora attacked both, but Pluto dodged the attacks. Pluto told Adam to send him the bomb's blueprint. After Adam did, Pluto said his wish was to turn the Earth into flower fields. He asked Adam to tell Oren he was grateful she painted with him. Pluto released his grip, lifted Adam up, then drew his arm back again after pulling Adam out of the volcano. Adam fell to the ground, and Ochanomizu and Nakamura ran to him, while Adam kept whispering Seihad's name. A huge explosion happened inside the volcano. Adam quickly carried Ochanomizu and Nakamura away. Then the three noticed the sky had a patch shaped like a flower field. Adam said, Seihad saved the Earth. Meanwhile, the doll told Thracia's president the explosion calmed, but she could come up with another plan. The president begged her not to. Suddenly, the robot Blau's arm stretched out from somewhere after finally breaking free. He grabbed the president by the neck and stabbed him. It turned out the doll was Blau himself. Elsewhere, Adam asked Okonomizu about hatred. Okonomizu said he hoped hatred would disappear someday.